And you are live, Your Honor.
Thank you, James. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Newington Town Council regular meeting of Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 at 7 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is our roll call, please.
Councilor Braverman,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Butrego,
Here.
Councilor Camillo,
Here.
Councilor Donahue,
Here.
Councilor Mankey,
Here.
Councilor Nagel,
Here.
Councilor Page,
Here.
Councilor Rada,
Here.
Mayor Del Buono,
Here.
all present.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
All right, next this evening, we have approval of our agenda. I understand we have some changes recommended to the order of our agenda. Councilor Mankey?
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to move item, let's say 8A and 9A and B up under, right after remarks by councilors on public participation.
Okay.
These
There's
are, these
go ahead.
individuals are waiting. Good?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, these people are, these are presentations, so if we have them earlier, that people don't have to hang on for the rest to the, you know, to their time is up.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Camillo. Councilor Page, I see your hand up. Did you have something else?
Yes, Mayor, if we could please, just a correction on, I think it's 10C, under the nominations that are listed for tonight. If that under Park and Rec Board could be party max 7 instead of 8, please.
Are you looking at the agenda or are you looking at an item?
It's on the appointments. I'll make
It's on
that
the
correction when we
appointments.
get to it. Mitch.
Okay, is that said another time? Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you. So right now we have three changes to the agenda. We're looking at moving item 8A, item 9A and B up to right after item 6, remarks by councilors. Those are the changes
Correct.
that are recommended so far. And we have a second. Is there any
Second.
other discussion? Any other discussion on those? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. We have some changes approved, and now we'll vote on the actual approval of the agenda as amended in that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an approved agenda. Next item is awards and proclamations, and we have the distinct pleasure this evening of honoring Tim Cunningham, who is retiring from our police department. Welcome.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation into the record, and then we'll have an opportunity for council comment, and we'll take our vote. And then we're going to give you an opportunity as well. Okay.
Great.
Here we go. Proclamation. Whereas Timothy Cunningham was hired as a police officer for the town of Newington on May 5th, 2005. And whereas in June 2008, Officer Timothy Cunningham received a written commendation for a Bertucci's robbery. And whereas in 2009, Timothy Cunningham was appointed Student Resource Officer and was appointed to the Youth Adult Council, where he served until November 2013. And whereas Officer Timothy Cunningham received an Outstanding Performance Investigation of the Month in December 2011. And whereas on July 23rd, 2017, Timothy Cunningham was assigned to the Patrol Division. And whereas Timothy Cunningham was promoted to Master Police Officer on January 3rd, 2021. And whereas Master Police Officer Timothy Cunningham received various letters and thank you notes of appreciation from residents, Newington Public Schools, and the Department of Human Services. And whereas Master Police Officer Timothy Cunningham received commendation letters from surrounding police departments, including Wethersfield Police, West Hartford Police, and Middletown Police. And whereas after 16 plus years of service, Master Police Officer Timothy Cunningham retired from the Newington Police Department on January 31st, 2022. And now therefore be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes and extends its sincere appreciation to Master Police Officer Timothy Cunningham for his professional service and dedication to the town of Newington and wishes him the best in his retirement. Dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 8th day of February 2022. Signed, Beth Del Buono, Mayor, on behalf of the Newington Town Council.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor
Second.
Mank. Thank you. And I'll open it up for council discussion. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yeah, Officer Cunningham, you've helped so many people throughout your career here in Newington. I mean, some of the areas are listed here in this proclamation. Just normal residents, Newington Public Schools, Department of Human Services. You've received commendations and letters of appreciation from other towns. Your service to the town of Newington certainly helped make our community better, as well as the surrounding communities. So I want to just say congratulations on your retirement and thank you so much for your service. And I hope that now you're able to enjoy some time off with your friends and family. And again, sincere appreciation for all you've done for our town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Camillo.
Tim, thank you very much. I've known you your whole time here, worked with you many times on a few different projects. And I hope the way the world is today, it doesn't sway you from continuing your profession somewhere else, bringing your professionalism to another town. I want to thank you again for all you've done and good luck in your future.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Councilor Manky.
Yeah, Officer Cunningham and I, we go back to our days in Youth Adult Council. And we spent many a night patrolling the hallways after hoopla basketball games. I just always been impressed with his professionalism, his compassion, and the way he kind of looks out for our community. I think he's an excellent officer and he'll be sorely missed in town. Just want to wish him well on his retirement and good luck in the future.
Thank you, Tim.
Councilor Page.
Officer Cunningham, I just want to thank you very much for your service to our town. I echo everyone else's comments, and I wish you the very best for you and your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Nagel.
I'd wish to also add my appreciation for the years that you've spent in the police department. You truly represent the best of what Newington's finest are known for. And I know that you will continue to pursue your excellence in whatever field you wish to continue with. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Rada.
Yes, again, echoing what everyone else has said, and from the proclamation, you've led a longstanding and outstanding career in our community. So I want to thank you for the service to our town, to our residents, and wish you all the best in your retirement from Newington Police Department.
Thank you.
All right, it's always difficult to go last, but Tim, I just wanted to say thank you for your service. You were actually at the high school for a short time while my kiddos were there. My kiddos who are 22 and 24 now. So I did get to see you kind of firsthand in action and see the impact you had not only on our community as a whole, but on our students in your time there. So I want to say thank you to you for all that you've done for our community. The proclamation, says it all about all the different commendations and things that you've accomplished. And what I consider a short time, but I'm sure you don't, but 11 years in our town, really wish we could have held on to you for a little longer, but I do wish you the very best in whatever the future holds for you as you retire from us. And I wish you the best with whatever you want to do and your family as well. Always in our thoughts.
Thank you.
And now this is where we give you a little chance to say anything you'd like to.
Well, I want to thank the town of Newington Police Department for giving me the pleasure opportunity to serve in this fine police department for over 16 and a half years. As you note in the proclamation, the highlight of my career was being a school resource officer for 8 years at Newington High School, where I felt I made a difference in kids' lives. the mentoring they had with kids, the connections will never be forgotten. To this day, I miss that job, and I think it's a very important position inside the police department. And I just want to thank the citizens of Newington that I served over 16 years, and for the men and women that I've served with. They do a fine work, and we appreciate support from the town council and the residents of the town that we receive every day for the last 16 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, counselors, we're going to take our vote now. So make sure you're unmuted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. I do want to add an opportunity for the public to weigh in on this proclamation. So it's not public participation on any matter yet. This is just for the proclamation. If there is anyone that wanted to weigh in, I know there's usually some folks that like to have an opportunity before the person who was the recipient logs off. So let me just click over to our other window, see if anyone wants to speak to the proclamation. All right, I have Ms. Mazzacoli. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Susan Mazzacoli, 149 Harris Drive. I also want to add my voice to say thank you to Master Police Officer Cunningham, especially for your time serving as a student resource officer. I just think that and agree with you. That's the most important part of your history with our Newington students and also with teachers and staff. And I appreciate all that you contributed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mazzacoli. Mr. Woods?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
I guess I just tuned in just in time. I want to congratulate Police Officer Timothy Cunningham for all of his service to the town of Newington. He's done a fabulous job, and I believe he epitomizes what a Newington police officer should be. Forceful when they need to be, but yet he is a member of the community and definitely is invested in our town, and he showed it over the years. I know he did an excellent job when he was the SRO officer, and I know that he enjoyed it very much. And we're going to be very sorry to see you move on, but very happy at the same time, Tim, for all that you've done for our town. And again, I want to thank you. I'm glad I signed in when I did to have that opportunity to thank you for all that you've done. And good luck wherever you end up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other members of the public weighing in on this one. So again, thank you so much, Officer Cunningham. We appreciate you greatly.
Thank you for bringing me forward. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Our pleasure. All right, folks, we're going to move on. The next item on our agenda this evening is public participation on any matter. Any member of the public may participate if you're in the Zoom application by raising your hand in the participants window, or if you're on your phone, *9 will raise your hand so that we know you'd like to participate. And we just ask that you state your name and address for the record. And our time limit is 4 minutes. So I will click on over to that public participation window and see who's wanting to speak. All right, I don't see any members of the public right now. I'll give it one more minute or a few seconds at least. All right, we have no one with their hands up. We'll continue on with our agenda. The next item, we did not receive any email correspondence, correct?
We did not.
Okay. All right, perfect. We will move on now to, well, remarks by counselors on public participation. I don't think we have any, correct? Next item is the items that we moved ahead on our agenda. So the first one would be the health update for COVID-19. We have Charles Brown with us, and the next one after that is Central Connecticut Health District, the annual report, which Mr. Brown will be doing both of those. So I will turn it over to you, Charles.
And thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I've actually incorporated the COVID information into the presentation. So we'll go ahead and do that all at one time. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for being here tonight. We're going to talk about some things that are not COVID, which is a novelty for me to be doing that in front of a town council here over the last 2 years. We used to, before the pandemic, we would come every year just to, remind folks and do some education on what exactly the health district did. And at that point, it was kind of novelty because not many people knew what we were doing. So, now, thankfully to the pandemic, public health is on everybody's lips and on their minds. So, but this is a good opportunity for us, once again, to remind folks that the things that we do while COVID is very important at this particular time, we do a lot of things to assist our member towns in the community, and we'll go over many of those things tonight. Before I do that, I'd like to recognize, a couple of our board members that are with us here tonight. So I've got our board members, Jerry Nagel and Roy Zatarian, who are actually on the call tonight. We also have board member Dave Wimet, who unfortunately I don't think could be with us this evening. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll jump into the actual presentation. So as I said, this is our 2021-22 annual update for our member towns. It's presented by myself, Charles K. Brown, who's the Director of Health, on behalf of Patricia Chayko, who's a chairman of our Board of Health. General information about CCHD: we are the local health department for the towns of Berlin, Newington, Rocky Hill, and Wethersfield, and we serve a combined population of about 97,000 people. We were founded in 1996, so we are now at our 25th year, getting 25 plus years, providing a broad range of public health services to our member towns. And you can see that 25th anniversary emblem that we had created for to celebrate that. CCHD is one of 20 regional public health departments in Connecticut. Public health departments come in 3 flavors in Connecticut. You have districts that are like us that have multiple towns taking advantages of economies of scale to get more services, more bang for their buck. You have full-time municipal departments, and then you have what they call part-time departments, which has a full-time sanitarian and usually a part-time doctor to sign orders for that particular small town. They're usually very small towns with very limited services. We have our new office. It's still a new office. It's been about 3 years now where we consolidated all of our offices in Rocky Hill, 2080 Silas Dean Highway and Suite 100. You can see the building there on the left-hand side as you head south into Rocky Hill. It's the St. Francis building with that beautiful curved brick facade on the left-hand side as you're going south. We have 14 full-time employees, and that includes 3 new employees for COVID-19 grant-funded positions. We have over 50 active professional and lay volunteers that assist us in operations. And we have oversight from a 14-member board of health that's made up of board members appointed by our member towns. And this is based on populations. And then once again, as me as the director of health is on the board as well. Berlin has 3 board members. Newington, because they have the largest population of our 4 towns, actually has 4 board members. Rocky Hill with 3 and Wethersfield with 3. Newington, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we have 3 board members currently assigned by Newington with 1 vacancy. So I need you guys to do some work and actually get me 1 more member for my board. Jumping into kind of the bottom line of things, how we operate as a district, really based upon the revenues that we actually bring in. Town contributions for our agency bring in about $624,000, just over that. And each of our towns in last year contributed $6.60 per person per year. Grants, federal, state, and local grants brought in another $678,000. And that's, and part of that is $1.85 per capita that we get for the state. And then program revenue, which consists mainly of our license fees that we have for restaurants, for septic work, for motel licenses, and flu clinic, where we get fees associated with our flu clinics and the COVID vaccinations. So any programs that we do, we gain revenue from. Got about $314,000 in the past year through that revenue. Our expenditures, mainly because we don't make widgets, our responsibility is for expenditures mainly go into our professional staff. So salaries and benefits make up the majority of our expenditures. Those folks are the ones that are out there doing all our work, and it takes quite a bit of expertise to accomplish that. We have some professional contracting that we do, and then our operating expenses, that's the overhead, making sure that we have a place for all those folks to work and do their thing, at about $292,000. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between healthcare and public health. They are similar but different. So when you look at healthcare, the primary focus of healthcare is the individual. Where public health, we look at our focus as the population as a whole. In healthcare, when somebody gets sick, we really try to do, as for an intervention, we really look at diagnosis and treatment of the individual. Where in public health, we really look at assessing, developing policies, and assuring that policies are followed to be able to make sure that we can intervene appropriately. Process for healthcare really talks about management of patient care, where in public health, we look more at systems management. How can we work within the environments that we have? How can we help alter human behavior to reach our best outcome? And the outcomes for healthcare is a return of that individual to health. Where in public health, we really are looking at how we can maintain and really improve the community's health as a whole over time. So the purpose of a public health agency really is to prevent epidemics and spread of disease, protect against environmental hazards, prevent injuries, promote and encourage healthy behaviors, respond to disasters and assist communities in recovery, and assure the quality and accessibility of health services. And it sure would have been nice to be able to go into the pharmacy and ask for an ounce of prevention, but we've definitely been working our hearts out trying to get that found a cure for everybody. So let's talk about some COVID-19. I'm not going to talk about this a lot tonight in the presentation, but I do need to address the elephant in the room. As of this afternoon, the number of cases in Newington from the beginning of the pandemic stands at 5,816 cases. Total number of deaths, fatalities at 127. And the total number of tests that we've actually done for Newington residents over the entire span is 116,478. As you look at vaccinations in Newington, they've really done an outstanding job. You guys really have in the vaccination aspect. The stars of the show always seem to be our seniors. Seniors in Newington at 65 and above really do account for over 97% fully vaccinated, and 76% of those have actually gotten their booster shot as well. As you move down in the age range to that 45 to 64, almost 85% have been vaccinated, with 54% getting their booster. Then the 25 to 44s pick up there at 79%, about 38% boosted, and then your 12 to 17, or actually 18 to 24s at 71.6 and about 30% boosted. Our 12 to 17s are school aged, are doing pretty well as also. 66.27% of our 12 to 17-year-olds have actually been fully vaccinated, and about 17% of those been boosted. There's a little work that we could do there. And then the 5 to 11-year-old group, had about 34% fully vaccinated at this point. So, there's some work that we can still do vaccination wise, but I think that overall as a community, Newington's doing pretty good. Some of the things that we've done and continue to do for COVID-19 response activities, vaccination of vulnerable populations. We've really worked with our towns throughout the pandemic to address those folks with functional needs, and also reaching out to make sure that are homebound to get vaccinated as well. We do daily reporting of cases to each of our member towns. We do contact tracing each day, utilizing volunteers from all 4 of our communities that come together to take cases, follow up with them, assure that they know how to quarantine and isolate appropriately so that they can protect their families and the communities. We do extensive health education through that, provide a lot of technical supports we've done to schools. We've done that really since the beginning of the pandemic, prior to their opening, and have continued to do so throughout all the changes that have gone on, and will continue to do that. We've been subject matter experts for press, for regulated facilities, and for residents. Anyone can call our office with a question, and we do our best to try to find them an answer to that. We also support our colleagues in the region as they're coming under stress, to support them. And we've done distribution of personal protective equipment to medical providers and long-term care facilities throughout the pandemic. So aside from COVID-19, we also address other diseases. There's other diseases other than COVID-19. Influenza being one of the main ones that we've actually do a lot of work on. Last year, we actually did over 1,300 flu shots in our drive-through vaccination clinics. Average time of shot is about 3 minutes from the time they pulled up with the form to getting their flu shots and driving away. In addition to that, we also do disease follow-up for hepatitis A, B, and C, salmonella. We follow up on lead poisoning cases in children, other vaccine preventable diseases like measles, whooping cough, and Legionella. Anybody remember before the pandemic when Triple E was a big deal? When that was something that everybody was very concerned about? Well, it's still a big deal. It's still something that we follow up on. We have traps for mosquitoes that are monitored by the state, and we get informed about things like Eastern equine encephalitis, about West Nile virus. We haven't heard about Zika in a little while, but there are a case here and there, mostly from international travel. We get cases of Lyme disease, ehrlichiosis, and babesiosis. So we follow up with these vectors of disease and really try to provide education for folks to be able to how to manage their properties, to bring down the vectors of those mosquitoes and ticks that carry these diseases and actually infect human beings. CCHD also has had a big response to the opioid crisis. We've been doing this for probably 5-6 years now, where we've been convening our local response agencies in all 4 of our towns to really address the tragedies of opioid and substance abuse. Currently, we have work groups addressing prevention, response, and recovery. We had a 2-year grant that's been extended now into a 4-year grant that may go to a 6-year grant from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services to really have a recovery coach operating in some of the main areas that have been affected by these substances. We utilize a lot of systems like ODMAP to be able to identify hotspots in areas. And we have a recovery coach that actually goes out there in the community to meet people where they're at, trying to get them on the road to recovery. And the big question that we ask, and it's the name of our particular program, is how can we help? How can we help get you to someplace that's better? Some of the main things that people may remember that we do is the protection against environmental services. Our environmental health staff does an outstanding job day in and day out doing inspections to assure the places are safe. Last year, they conducted over 1,242 food service inspections, 15 septic inspections, 85 pool inspections, 46 motels, and 125 salon inspections. That's a lot for about 4 to 5 people to really take on, in addition to all the COVID work that they did. In addition to all those inspections, they responded to 235 complaints last year. 43 of those complaints were COVID related, but the majority of those complaints really are housing and property maintenance issues. So we deal with hoarding issues where we work with social services, fire marshals to try to get those resolved. Other complaint issues that we deal with include food-related, rodents and insects, garbage refuse, any air and water pollution, and we do get some complaints about motels and bed bugs and things like that we follow up on. Another environmental issue that people are thinking is the indoor environment. So we have our Putting on Air Asthma program that actually conducts home visits with asthma patients, primarily children. It's a team approach where we bring an environmental health inspector and an asthma health educator to work with a family to be able to bring their asthma under control, where the environmental health inspector actually looks at the environment, identifies triggers and ways to address them, and then the asthma health educator helps them manage their medication in ways that doctors really can't spend the amount of time on. It's been a little challenging since the pandemic, but they've utilized technology like iPhones to be able to make these inspections and still conduct and provide the program. In addition to that, we have radon kit distribution that we do anytime we get new, when people usually buy new homes, they come knocking on our door to get a radon kit. And we have a push in January, just about every year in Radar Awareness Month, to be able to provide free kits. Lead poisoning prevention is another thing that we do, trying to raise awareness of lead poisoning, not just in, old houses where the pain is, but there are some other issues like food sources from other countries, that you may not really be aware of. So we work, have done the health fairs to be able to bring that information to the residents. One of the big things, and this is a big kudos for you guys, that we do to promote and encourage healthy behaviors, our 4-town walking competition. And just in case you didn't know, Newington won the competition last year. So kudos to you. Berlin had won it for 6 years previously. So this was the first time that a town other than Berlin had actually won the competition. So you guys really stepped it up. We're really very proud of you, Newington, for being able to do that. We have a very big, ugly trophy with a size 13 gold shoe on top of it that's waiting for you to proudly, put out there in your new town hall. Weathersfield, they won the Impact Award for highest participation. So, congratulations to both of you. We're looking forward to doing this again, make it bigger and better, get more people out there active within the community. It's definitely an important thing. We also respond to disasters and assist our communities in recovery. As I mentioned, we do flu clinics every year, but the reason that we do those is twofold. We want to be able to protect every individual, but we also use that as an opportunity to test our plans and to be able to make adjustments to them. As an example, up into the last 2 years, we had never done drive-through flu clinics, but because of the environment and the possibility for passing COVID from one people to the other as we were giving flu shots, we really had to do that in a more open air environment, and drive-through clinics was a way to accomplish it. So we've had 2 years to be able to do that, and we've really refined our plans appropriately, and now have this particular tool in our toolbox if we need to use it in any way. In addition to infectious diseases, we also address flooding and other natural disasters and work with our emergency managers to address the health issues that come from those types of disasters. As we look towards the future, we've looked towards the administrative and health policies. Last year, we actually revised our sanitary code, and our board adopted a new version of that, worked with our regulated community to be able to get feedback, and I think did an excellent job. Our sanitarian teams really stepped up and made that change. We're waiting for the full adoption of the FDA food code. We are not really waiting that much because we've actually moved forward and for the most part have adopted and enacted that within our 4 towns. In the past, several months, we've actually moved forward on our community health assessment and improvement planning. We worked with with a contractor to be able to gather some basic data about our towns and bring that together. And we're looking forward to bringing leadership like the mayors and town managers together to review that data and start to prioritize what we feel are the big health priorities for our communities in the future and what we at the health district need to work on. Last things, 2 words is thank you. Thank you to all of our member towns, to you, our public, for your continued support of the district. We're very happy to serve you. It's been a very challenging 2 years in the pandemic, but we really do thank you all for the support that you have given us throughout that, and we look forward to serving you many years in the future. With that, I will stop my share.
Thank you so much, Charles. I say this every year when you come to do this presentation. I feel like I learn one more little thing every year about what you guys do on an everyday basis, because I think I really enjoy the slide where you compare your health district versus healthcare. I think oftentimes the public confuses the two, and so I really do appreciate that slide especially. I want to open it up for counselors if anybody has any comments or questions or thoughts. Counselor Nagel.
Thank you. Charles, once again, I appreciate your being here, as well as our commissioners from Newington to share all this information with us. Of course, as you mentioned at the beginning, everyone is more aware of your organization because of COVID, but there's also a great deal of things that you've presented that you do that people need to be reminded of. And it seems like every time there are more things added to your toolboxes. You have said that benefit Newington as well as the surrounding towns. So I really do appreciate all that you've done over the years, and presently what you and the board members are doing. I also have a question which you may be able to answer or not at this given time. Just recently, our governor has changed the policy in terms of masking as of, I believe, the end of this month, specifically for students. A mandate in our school systems. Still some confusion about that on me, and then just generally the whole idea of masking and where the health district stands in terms of that for a local community. So if you can address that to some extent at this point, that would be greatly appreciated. And thank you again.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of the elephant in the room as we're coming into this presentation. So yeah, the governor has recommended that they remove the mask mandate for in schools at the end of February. Personally and professionally, I think that it's a little too soon to accomplish that. As we look at the map of Connecticut, and the majority of towns, I think with the exception of 3, are still in the high alert phase of having the number of cases over 15 per 100,000. Hopefully here in the coming weeks, we have seen a decrease in the amount of cases for this Omicron surge that will be in a place to where, removing the mask in the schools is not going to adversely affect our kids. Ultimately, I think that, as we said, the tools in the toolbox, masking is one of those things that we have there. And we need to remember that even though we may get to a point to where we remove the mask in schools, if the cases start to come up, that is a tool in our mitigation strategy to be able to utilize. And it's not a bad or a good thing. It's a tool. So, people politicize it, I think, a lot. But as we looked at the beginning of this pandemic to really what we had to address the issues without a vaccination, masking is one of those strategies that you layer together with distancing, with, washing your hands, to be able to slow the spread of the disease. It doesn't necessarily stop it, but it will slow it. And each piece of that mitigation strategy is important. So I'm looking forward to working with, our schools, on how they're enacting this as they move forward. And once again, we're always here to be able to provide what technical support that we can and subject matter expertise, as these things get enacted. Really keeping an eye on the number of cases, I think, is important, and being nimble in the use of our tools to address them as we move forward. Hope that answers your question, Dave.
To some extent, but as I said, this is just a recent announcement and whatever, and I know the situation is fluid. Thank you again.
Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yeah, first of all, Charles Brown, I know you thanked us, but I think we owe you a great deal of thanks as well, so it's mutual. But actually, I do have a question, not really COVID related.
Good.
Your job is to identify, mitigate, and hopefully eliminate, health risks in the community. And my ears kind of perked up when you were talking about motels, because particularly Newington has several facilities on the Berlin Turnpike, which sometimes tend to make the press in either a good or a bad way.
Mhm.
And when they do make the press in a bad way, it's in terms of drug use, prostitution, and quite frankly, human trafficking.
Mhm.
But I know your job requires confidentiality as well, because you can't assist people or assist the community if they're worried that their confidentiality is going to be compromised. But I'm just curious, how closely do you work either with making referrals or contacting the police or human services in area towns?
We've actually worked very closely with both social services and with the police department. We've recently, started working with Newington PD when they, have cases that have overdoses, to be able to share that information with our recovery coach so that we can make outreach and follow up. So we actually do share information along those lines. Being a public health agency, we're able to do that in a confidential manner and be able to help support, those people that have actually, undergone overdoses as a follow-up. The other issues that you address, the human trafficking and prostitution, I agree. They are challenging, issues. We do our best to be able to assure that the hotels are healthy places for people to utilize. We inspect them every year, and if we see issues within a particular facility, we will share that information also with law enforcement so that those can be addressed. The recovery coaches that we have had out on the Berlin Turnpike have been challenged a lot, in some of the areas where they're going into. And, it is something that I think in the future, additional funding to address, those basic human needs and to see about affordable housing issues within not only Newington, but all our surrounding communities are there, so that people really don't utilize those motels as, long-term options for living. They're not built as apartments. But a lot of times that's all that people can afford within their circumstances. So, I think that there's a lot of work yet to be done there.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Rada?
Yes, first of all, thank you, and thank the members of the board for all of the work that you do 24/7. This was a great presentation, and I'm sure just it's the tip of the iceberg in terms of all of the details and all of the work that you all do.
You do not believe how fast I have to talk as a Southerner to get through this as quickly as I do.
Well, having done some work with Farmington Valley Health District, I can only imagine what your involvement is and everything that you all do on a daily basis. So thank you all so much. And if that you can always call on us so that we can help spread the word and work with you in terms of programming and any projects. A couple of questions, and similarly, at least one related to what Councilor Budrako has just asked. We know that the opioid epidemic is a public health issue, and it is shift from heroin to fentanyl because, number one, it's much cheaper and much easier to acquire, but also much deadlier in many respects. First question is, where do you see that going, and how, as a public health department, we can try to work on this and mitigate the what we see happening and probably only increasing? And the second is, what, in terms of your networks and connections, how is the health district involved in folks who are unstably housed or homeless in our room?
Okay. So I'll address the first issue with respect to the opioids. Here about 5 years ago, close to 6 years ago now, when we started to see the rates of hepatitis C go up among younger populations, that's really what drove us to investigate and say what's going on. And really what we found was that it was primarily intravenous drug use at the time. And so as we saw that, found out that this is what was happening in our communities, the question that I and my assistant director, Ann Hartman, at the time asked was, what can we do locally that can have an effect here? So we brought, all of the stakeholders together that we could find: law enforcement, education, town manager, government services, social services, everybody that we could find, businesses, together to talk about, how we can work together at the local level and make an impact. That actually turned into an opioid coalition. So we continue to meet regularly to talk about, how we can bring funds together, how towns can work together. So we have social services agencies that now work together. They partner up to raise awareness for prevention, to address recovery issues and things of that nature. So, I mean, as we, have seen the numbers continue to climb, and I think that that's one of the problems that we had here during the pandemic is the numbers have continued to climb. But what we're seeing in the community is it's not just the areas where we historically see use. During the pandemic, it wasn't along the Silestein and the Berlin Turnpike. It spread out into the communities. So you could see into the suburbs, into the housing developments, that's where the overdoses were occurring. So, we have, I think, a lot to do with, I think, what people consider a typical drug user. There really no such thing. So we really have to get the word out and really address that this particular challenge affects all of us, and it affects, many individuals within our communities. I think there's a lot of work that can be done for our towns to fund programs appropriately, and to realize that the cost for recovery in these situations is something that's long term. So it needs to be planned for long term, and that's where you guys come in. So we're happy to be able to work to identify, to get the data, to provide what resources that we have as far as personnel, like the recovery coach that we have now. But in the future, what we're looking for are things like, places where people who are in recovery can go, places that aren't going to cause them to relapse, what supports they need to be able to be a contributing member, once again to society if they have lapsed off the path. So, working with social services has been very good. Carol Lebrecht and her team really is wonderful to work with in this, and we are very happy to be a part of their partners. The second part, the homeless situation, we, through our recovery coach, we've actually been able to identify some people who are homeless in our communities, and have gotten them to the appropriate resources, either social services or to the homeless shelters, to be able to provide them with services. So being out in the community, and even with our inspectors when they're going through the motels, provides us with kind of a unique lens and the opportunity to be able to give information to people if they're in need of it. So we give out quite a few resource cards in the community to be able to assure that people know that there's people out there willing to help them. And I hope that answered at least part of what you were asking.
Absolutely. And thank you, your staff, all the volunteers, for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Counselor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown, thank you very much. I just had one question, which is, You've talked a lot about the opioid crisis, and we all know I don't fully appreciate how it's impacted people. You know so much about it. How about with kids? Do you collect data on minors as they're affected directly with drugs? And if you do, can you speak to the prevalence of that in our area?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really see a lot of overdoses within kids. I think that here in the past few weeks, we've seen some examples within Hartford and other outlying communities. And I think where, kids may be getting involved in this a little bit more is as fentanyl is introduced into some of the recreational drugs that they may use. For example, in Southington, the issue was fentanyl-laced marijuana. So, kids may not quite understand what they're purchasing. And I think that we may start to see an increase in that. So it's something that we have to work with law enforcement to be able to address. Overall, we don't see a lot of, really young kids overdosing, but the numbers have gone down over time. So we do get into the late teens, early 20s, have quite a bit of information. I'd welcome an opportunity to be able to bring, our folks to a town council meeting in the future just to address and identify, some of the issues around opioids and to report it on more deeply on what activities we have. It seems like there's a need.
Thank you so much. And it seems like ongoing education and collaboration as you're doing with our police officers and with schools and so forth will continue to be critical. Thanks a lot, very much.
Thank you.
Counselor Menke.
Yeah, Charlie, so I've had occasion to work with you over the last year, and some of your staff. I just want to compliment you on your dedication, your staff's dedication to our town and the professionalism. You folks, you've impressed me with your professionalism. I think you do a great job on our behalf, and I just want to thank you for your efforts.
Well, we do the best work that we can, and I always say, crisis can bring out the best in people, and our folks really have stepped up quite a bit. They were great beforehand, but it's amazing to me to see, the levels of work that they bring and do every day. So thank you for that recognition, Tim. It's been great to work with you and all the volunteers in Newington. For those that don't know, we couldn't do our flu clinics really without the CERT teams that Newington helps to provide. They really are a critical factor for being able to do that each and every year. So we thank you for the opportunity to work with them. We've become very close with a number of them over the years, and just can't say thank you enough.
You all set, Counselor Menke?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. One last thank you, Charles. We do appreciate all you've done, especially every year, but especially with COVID and all you are going through with all the towns. We greatly appreciate you and everyone else. And thank you, Mayor Z and Geraldine Nagel, for being on the call as well. I know it's great to see your faces. It's been a while, so nice to see you both.
Yep. Yeah, no, y'all just need to get me another member, please.
Yes, we will work on that.
All
Councilor
right, guys.
Menke, we will work on that. All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I made a note on my sticky pad here.
All right, Maggie.
All right. Thanks.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care. Bye-bye. All right, folks. Next on our agenda is the other item that we had moved up, which is our Munis presentation. So I will just clarify several of our Board of Education members had mentioned that they were interested in revisiting Munis at the Shared Services Committee. We had invited the two members of the Shared Services Committee on the Board of Education. James, I believe you had worked on that for us, correct?
That is correct. I actually did receive a response back from board member Branda. He was confused why he was receiving it, and I indicated to them that we didn't realize that they had another meeting going on with ours as well.
Exactly. And I had talked to Dr. Fletcher as well. I think when he and I spoke about the idea of having this on our agenda and inviting them, neither of us had realized that the Board of Education had scheduled a special meeting or was going to be scheduling one for this evening for budget. So we had to decide kind of what to do with that. And I know it made sense to it was already on our agenda, had already been posted. So we decided to keep it on the agenda. and hear the presentation. And I would just ask James, if you could afterwards send whatever information Munis provides us in written form to the members of the Shared Services Committee, as well as the Superintendent of Schools, because we had also invited her to attend, and just make sure that they have the information. And then after this presentation, we can certainly decide if we think it's worth pushing back the information to the Shared Services Committee, and it's up to them if they want to meet or not. But I think it makes sense for us as a council to at least hear the full presentation that we have not yet heard. I'm looking forward to hearing it so that we can see where it leads us. James, can you introduce who's on the call this evening for us?
Certainly. This evening, we of course have our finance director, Janet Murphy, as well as Eddie Flaherty. He's from Munis directly. He'll be doing a brief presentation after Janet has finished her presentation, which I will get up on the screen for her in just a moment.
Great. And I just want to mention, counselors, I did not mention at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Chapman is not on the call right now. He is feeling very under the weather today. I know he had signed on earlier. I believe he dropped off. He had kind of indicated that depending on how he felt, he may or may not be able to stay on the call, and James is filling in for any information we need in his absence. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. All right, Ms. Murphy, welcome.
Good evening. As you mentioned, I was asked to revisit this topic. I know the Board of Ed addressed it last August. And I wanted to go and start and kind of present something that hasn't been presented yet. And that's the current status and how everything actually works between the Board of Ed and the town with transactions and the workflow and everything like that. It was mentioned in some of the previous memos about the transaction, but I don't think until you actually do the work, which I've been doing now for the last a little over a year because our part-time person left, you don't realize how much work it actually is to coordinate the transactions Board of Ed does, and then we enter in ours. So just to give you a feel, I just thought I'd give you the current status and then talk about the memo that I put in the packets to you guys. If you can go to the first page. Thanks, James. So as they said in the memo, they talked about the Board of Ed. Board of Ed has Alio and Frontline as their two systems. We have Munis alone that does all these functions, does accounts payable, does payroll, does general ledger. And our current project right now, which is the employee self-serve, will also bring in something that they had on their side that we didn't have previously, which is the ability to start doing recruiting from the very beginning to onboarding, and also to allow all employees to see everything from their pay stub to updating their status on certain items. That's something that was in their system that wasn't in ours. It's one of the projects we had discussed that we were going to go forward with, and the town will have that in place. We're planning by the end of June at the latest to try to have that all. Implementation has already begun. Software's been downloaded. We're going to be starting training. So that's something we didn't have last year. I know the Board of Ed mentioned, technology-wise, we were a little bit behind them. That was a big part of it. We didn't have that. And it was a project that we had in mind, whether the Board of Ed came with us or not, that we had to do it. We have to step forward technology-wise and move forward. At this point, I don't know how they do their budgeting, if they do it in Alio or not. I don't have it on this list, but the town also does all their budgeting through Munis. So from the department heads entering their budgets straight through to it being reviewed by the town manager, and then we make the changes in there that you guys recommended to the final adopted. The Board of Ed, I'm not sure if they put in an Alio or not. I heard that they had a database, but I can't be for certain, so I'm not going to say. But just to give you an idea, we have two separate systems, Frontline and Alio, and ours is Munis. Next slide, James. So right now, the way it works for accounts payable, the Board of Ed runs all their accounts payables. They'll send me an email saying, hey, I ran this account payable this week. Here is the total dollar amount. Here are the checks that we use. We then go and take that information. We do an entry on our side, along with we record all their check information in a separate spreadsheet to be able to do reconciliation. They'll send down a paper copy of that check run, just listing all the checks and who was paid within the next day or two after they send me the email. Payroll, something similar. It's on a bi-weekly basis. So they will send me an email, once again, saying this is what I paid for payroll. It will include the payroll itself, direct deposits, along with checks, along with vendor checks, along with payroll taxes, along with the payment to the Teachers Retirement Board. So that one every couple of weeks can be pretty involved once they get all that together. And then we'll do the transfers for them. We'll record everything for them and confirm that everything has gone through. Miscellaneous entries, just so you know, every month I sit and do a reconciliation with the Board of Ed and the town, what's been put in there, because I check my figures in my system to their figures in their system. There might be miscellaneous entries we have to make between the two of them. They'll include such things as fuel, life insurance that we do a monthly one on. You'll also remember that the preschool deposits now are being put against their operational budget. So we also reconcile for that and any other various things like void checks and stuff like that on both sides. So they'll void it on their side, we'll void it on our side. The total entries that we had to make for things like that during the 2020-21 fiscal year were 500 entries. So this means they're making entries in their system. We're doing the dual thing on our side to do the same thing. So just to give you an idea of the volume, if it's a couple lines of entry, it's not too bad. But when you get into the payroll or some of the other ones we have to do, it can get pretty time consuming to do some of this stuff. As I said, it used to be our part-time person doing it, and now it's me. So you don't really know until you start doing what that person was doing, how much it could be. Next page, James. So these are some other considerations that I just wanted to bring in to let you know that we should consider when considering the software. It would eliminate that need for monthly reconciliation because basically the Board of Ed would be able to make all the entries, the numbers would be same because it would be doing dual on both sides. We have a lot of on our side accounts that we keep for them, such as the school CIP, the Board of Ed CIP accounts, the Board of Ed non-lapsing. We also confirm some of the revenue accounts that we keep on our side. And a lot of times this would allow them to see access themselves and keep up to date and keep balanced instead of having them waiting for us to get back to them and say, oh yeah, here's your balance and stuff like that. It will also allow them to put their own purchase orders in. They do transfers within CIP at least once a year, if not more, or between their accounts when they determine that they have a different need. This would allow them to do the transfers themselves. It wouldn't have to be them writing it upstairs and sending it down to us for us to enter it, because they, of course, would have to enter it in their spreadsheet or however they're keeping track upstairs. And at the end of the year for the auditors, it would simplify the auditors coming in and reviewing everything, because it inevitably comes down to the auditor saying, wait a sec, the town has this number and the Board of Ed this. Can you explain why? So then we go through another reconciliations to try to determine where we're off, where our differences are. That's just to give you some history of how things currently work between the two departments. And then I also looked at, and you guys have in your package, if James, you can pull up too, is the memo. There was a memo that was given to the Board of Ed last year when they discussed going to Munis or not going to Munis. I took that memo and I added in a third column because things have changed since then, number one. Number two, when this memo went to the Board of Ed, just so you know, I had no input into this. I wasn't asked about it. I wasn't consulted about it. And I understand it was their report to their Board of Ed, but it was a joint project. So we met with Munis together. We went through all this training together, but when this memo came out, there wasn't any input given from me in it. So this is kind of me revisiting that and looking at it and going through it and giving you my thoughts on it also. I did sit in that Board of Ed meeting, but I wasn't allowed, I didn't participate in the discussion unless a question was asked to me. So it was very much no input from me on this. So as I said, I'm revisiting it. I'm kind of giving it an update on what's going on. I sat down with our IT person, with Munis, to try to go through this and confirm facts and new situations, as I said. So as you go down, you'll see some areas that are different. The HR job application system, town doesn't have it. Town will have it right now when we go to the employee self-serve, as I mentioned before. The HR onboarding, same thing. We didn't have it, but as you know, Board of Ed pointed out when they didn't want to go with it in August, we weren't advanced, and now we're advancing with a new project. So this should all be in place by June. Time and attendance, yes, we will have that. We do have that too. There'll be the self-service portal. The employee portal, once again, that's part of our plan to put that in place. Electronic timekeeping system, we are also working on. Human resource module, that again is the onboarding that we talked about. So a lot of the things that were no before are now yes with a new project that we are putting in place. The other things you see there, you see general ledger, the budget module, those are still yes. It looks like I said before, I wasn't sure where they do the budget. Looks like they do it in Alio. Can you keep going down? Thanks, James. The accounts payable, still yes. Now the accounts receivable module, they originally said no. We do actually have it. It's not in use. We don't use it, but it is there to be fashioned in any way we want it to be able to use. All the other things stay the same. We do have fixed assets and Alio does not. We actually handle all their fixed assets currently now. So at the end of the year, before the auditors come, they send in their list to my deputy finance director to update the full list in our document management was a no. It is going to be a yes now. That is part of our upgrade also. It's ongoing. And custom report writer. There is a report writer in there. It's not exactly what they use, but we do have one that has been in use that we can look at and expand on to meet hopefully all of their needs. As you can kind of see, I then went through the costing of this. So this was a part that I did have some questions on, because if you looked up above, they always mention a lot of the times that it's not just Alio that is their system, it's Frontline. So it's those two combined make up what we're planning to do in Munis. But when we got to the cost of the system, they only included the cost for Alio, which is in the 20,000 range. The cost for Frontline is in the $70,000 range. So I know one of the big consideration was cost. So as you see down here, the new proposal, when I talked to Munis and everything involved, is the total for this total proposal to do this implementation and bring everything over is $428,000. It is a huge price. This is not going to be an easy project. It's not going to be a quick project. This project is going to take at least 18 months to 2 years to do if we decide to go forward with it. There would have to be upfront work that the town would have to do on their side to make sure everything's ready to be able to integrate with the Board of Ed. And so I said, so this is not, snap your fingers and done. This is going to be a lot of work. I'm not going to fool you about that, but it will be a lot of work. But you keep going down, James. If you look at the bottom where I have down your ongoing annual cost, Munis's ongoing annual cost is going to be $53,783. Originally, that was only being compared to the cost of Alio alone, which is $21,000. But the cost of Alio and Frontline is $99,701. So as I put down the analysis, this in terms of annual maintenance cost would pay for itself in a little over 9 years. And I know that was one of the big concerns we had was the total cost of it. And it's not a cheap project to do. I totally agree with that. But it's a project that over the years could pay for itself. I also wanted to address some of the things they had down here for questions. And the first one was the Munis system does not offer BOE any new resources or capabilities of matching the efficiency currently available in the system. I think with the upgrades that we're making and the technology advancements that we're making on our town side, that we would be doing, as I said, if one way or the other, that we do give them the same kind of efficiencies. And I say, you know, we're duplicate entering. We are. They're doing it up there. I'm doing it downstairs. It still takes them time and effort to send me everything. Still takes time and effort when we don't agree and have to look for why we're off. So I think there are some efficiencies gains there that we could have, that we should be looking at. The next thing was the annual cost of continued to use Alio being less than Munis. It is, but Alio, Alio can't compare to Munis. You need Frontline and Alio to compare to what Munis does. So if you're comparing that, it's different. It's actually cheaper to go with Munis than to stick with the other two software. The third thing they had down there, thank you, James. They have implemented several key software modules in Alio that are being investigated for potential adoption on the town side. That is true. They did have some other modules. As I just said, we're looking, that's our project currently right now, by the end of the year to have that in place. I don't know that you would have to abandon everything you did. Anybody switching from software, I did it when I was down in Clinton. A lot of times they can upload the information you have and bring it into the new software. So I'm not sure, because I can't say what Alio does or doesn't do, but I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit premature to say that they would have to abandon everything. The BOE, number 4, the BOE financial operations will be significantly impacted for up to 2 years while the Munis system matures. Additional staffing will be required. This is where I think we're missing the point of shared services. If we're shared services and we're truly helping each other out, you have system experts sitting right downstairs from you in my office that are more than willing and very capable of helping you and assisting you should you have questions, should you have problems, to get you up to date. They actually have, since last fall, their payroll clerk happens to be somebody who worked for the town and was entering the payroll for Park and Rec. So it's not like she has no familiarity with it. And this is something that we couldn't work on together, as I said, as joint. When they lost their payroll clerk, and this is the second time in a couple of years that it's happened, I've lucked out that I haven't lost mine. But when they do, they're in the union with the same job classifications. We could share to help them out or they help us out until they fill a position. This gives the ability for us to actually help each other out. I'm not talking about anybody taking over anybody's area. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we would be there to help. We would be able to say, hey, you know, we're bi-weekly. They do payroll every other week like we do. We could send somebody up to help. They could send somebody down if we were to lose somebody. It's that idea of sharing and sharing services I think we kind of missed when we looked at this first. The fifth thing we have down is the benefit identified the town. This is regarding ACH disbursement processing. I did get a message today from the Board of Ed regarding this, and they're opening it back up. But what I was kind of confused about is all these ACH vendors are already set up on Munis. So if we're really seriously considering moving to Munis, this is them kind of doing work twice. And I wouldn't want them to do that. I have sent them a couple of files of our vendors so they can check and test it and stuff. I do think this is something I want, but it's nothing I sat back and said had to be done immediately. Number 6, which is the payroll direct deposits. I was thrilled. They've done this. We've lessened the amount of checks going through. That really didn't have anything to do with Munis as more as it had to do with the fact that we're getting substantially more fees from the banks for every check that we have. The next one is the electronic, we do check the bank reconciliation. We do all the bank reconciliations downstairs. What we are able to do is to take from Munis a file and download it and get our outstanding checklist. with the Board of Ed, since they're not on the same system, and Alia doesn't seem to be able to do that, I have to manually put together their checklist every month for payroll and for accounts payable. So we're looking to reduce that. Once again, that really doesn't have to do with the software as much as some efficiencies that we can gain. And the last one was regarding the overall cost, which I kind of already discussed, that if we look at it in terms of replacing those two softwares with one, it could pay for itself in a little over 9 years, the implementation. That was kind of my quick dive into looking at this and reviewing it and revisiting it. And some things have to do with the changes that we're doing on our side. And some of it had to do with me just taking a deeper look at what they originally presented. I do have Eddie Flaherty from Tyler Munis on with me also tonight. And I was going to let him talk really briefly. And then if you guys had any questions, we'd be more than happy to entertain them. Are you there, Eddie?
I am here, Jen. You're able to hear me?
Yep.
So, all right. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. And James, could you, you're one step ahead of me, got me over here. So I just want to start off by saying thank you, everyone, for giving me the time here to present. I will keep this brief. I know you all have plenty of agenda items, and during COVID, that agenda list always seems long everywhere. So I just want to introduce myself. So as I was introduced, my name is Eddie Flaherty, and I've been the account rep for the town of Newington related to Munis for the past year. Prior to that, I actually spent 5 years implementing Munis in Connecticut and pretty much, I'd say, like 2/3 of the states in the country, ranging California, Florida, etc. I just wanted to take a few minutes today to share with you and kind of talk about what it is we really offer and the benefit that we see in general, both around the country and definitely more specifically, obviously, in Connecticut with our clients that share the municipality side and Board of Ed on a single ERP solution. So I've kept my slideshow to 3 slides here. I've got 2 graphics and then a quote that I do want to share. So the first slide here really just helps display all the different pieces that we offer to our schools specifically, both in Connecticut as well as throughout the country. The services that you see on the slide are a little bit beyond the main scope that we're focusing on here, ERP. But I just think it's a powerful graphic to really be able to see, from what we started as a company up in Maine, which is actually where I'm based out of. I'm sitting in our main headquarters here in Yarmouth, giving this presentation, to becoming part of the Tyler Technologies higher level brand over the years and expanding throughout the country. And, some of the pieces that I like to point out here, the biggest thing to me that jumps out is the 98% client retention rate that you see on there. The 1 out of every 4 school districts now in the United States is utilizing some piece of our software, our number 1 selling piece being our Munis ERP solution. If you can go ahead, James, and please move on there to slide 2. And the second graphic here that I think is probably a little bit more powerful for everyone here in this meeting, and that I really show at any new presentation, as well as kind of talking to new staff, et cetera, is showing Munis in Connecticut specifically. And this graph is a little bit old. The one thing I do like to be able to point out now is where we see in the middle there, the blue circle with nearly 100 Munis clients in Connecticut. We have now surpassed that number. And that counts as separate. Some count as separate where we just have a municipality. Some count as both school. And then for those clients where we have both, we're actually treating those as one client. So my goal here is really to just show we have a ton of clients in Connecticut. We're the number 1 ERP provider in Connecticut. The majority of our clients choose to go with both the municipality and the Board of Ed on one system. And the reason for that is the efficiencies that provides, whether it's reporting. I like to use in Connecticut specifically, schools have their teacher retirement reporting that they need to do. We have a specific canned report that allows you to punch in that data, get what you need. When TRB over the years has made changes to that report, we have a dedicated state reporting team that ensures that those changes, they're working right with the state. They're making sure, okay, what do we need to do in our system to get that report to work? We make sure that it's tested and implemented and in place well before those reporting changes need to happen, so that all of our clients can meet whatever changes need to happen. Some of the other benefits that we find, and Janet pointed out a lot of these already, is the cross-training between the two sides. I use City of Hartford as my number one example, mostly because I spent 2 years implementing them for different aspects years ago on their timekeeping. They're totally fine with me saying this. They suffer with a ton of turnover between both sides. And obviously they're a lot larger than the town of Newington, but I think the example still resonates. When they have that type turnover, they have a lot of staff in IT and finance that work in both areas that are able to help as a group get that new staff up to speed, maybe pick up some slack on either side, which they've definitely done. And then Janice spoke on it as well, is the obvious processing efficiencies that you're getting when everything's going through one system. And you're not having to get data out of one and either manually input it into a second or doing export imports through Excel, et cetera. And one other piece that I just like to add there is, one of the big questions I always get, and we've definitely got, is what about, data access and security and pieces like that? We can handle all of that. We can do things like, roles and permissions, inquiry only, so that, someone from the town side may be able to see data on the Board of Ed side within Munis, but they can't touch anything. They have read-only access. So all of those things are pieces that are always handled through any implementation. The last couple pieces that I do just like to mention, and kind of, our goal as a company here at Tyler Technologies, and definitely with Munis specifically, is allowing our different communities to connect, whether that's what we're talking about tonight between the town and the Board of Ed, or whether we're talking about all of the towns and cities, municipalities in Connecticut, the Board of Eds, et cetera. We really love to build that connectivity. And so a couple of the things that we provide to help achieve that is, we have an online Tyler community page that we call it, that's dedicated. We have a specific page for different products as well as for different states, where different IT directors, finance directors, what have you, are connected. Once a year in Connecticut, I'm hoping this year we'll be back in person after 2 years of remote. We have a user group meeting where all of our different Munis leaders from our different clients get together and talk about what are the biggest issues we're having, what are changes that are coming to the state, how are you guys going to handle this? Oh, we're going to handle it this way. Oh, that's a good idea, et cetera. And then larger scale, once a year, we also have a Connect conference. That is our biggest event of the year by far. That has thousands and thousands of clients that come together for a 4-day conference, and we offer hundreds of educational courses on whether it's changes, new modules, road mapping, et cetera. So again, my goal here was just to kind of show our, I like to use dominance in the state of Connecticut, and some of the value that we would bring with offering our ERP, same solution between the two sides. So the last thing that I want to share, and then I will open up to any questions if you have on my side, and I'll let you guys move on here, is I just like to share this quote here. This is from Mary Pippin, who is my number one contact over at the City of Hartford. If anyone's had the pleasure to deal with her, she's incredible. And she got this together from this is a joint statement from both the city and the Board of Ed. And I'm just going to look over my other screen just because the pictures of people are blocking half of it, and I don't want to figure out how to move it. So the City of Hartford, Connecticut, and the schools have been sharing the cost and use of Munis since 2008. And they operate under one state and federal tax ID number. The unified system affords us a shared GL account structure. Reporting tasks are simplified because data is stored in the same location and format. Funding for special projects is easily tracked, and shared revenue funding can be distributed. The return on investment is greater because of the use of shared equipment, human resources, ability to standardize business application desktops, which inherently eliminates the need to develop processes that combine data from multiple systems. Users share data across departments. IT staff supports and maintains one ERP solution, freeing up time for other tasks. Internal and external auditors are accustomed to the Munis product. They're able to self-navigate through inquiry screens. The integration of the content management system is specifically useful for sharing check images, other supporting documents such as contracts and bid awards, and allows the finance personnel time to focus on day-to-day tasks rather than assisting in potentially cumbersome information gathering exercises. Additionally, items imported from external companies and financial institutions are standardized. For example, the city uses P-cards, which imports transaction data into the system for invoice payments. Workflow approvals and notifications are generated across departments, ensuring that transactions are approved. The eliminated paper and created efficiencies allows for things processed in a timely manner. Workflow is available for all modules, and because the school system is integrated, the challenge of obtaining approvals across multiple systems and widely scattered locations is eliminated. The last piece I won't read, it's specific to our SaaS, our on us hosting solution. That is something that the town right now is, you're self-hosted, you are not hosted by us. We've had some discussions and it's probably something we'll revisit later down the road, me and Janet. But that is all I have. Again, I just want to say thank you for the time. I know you're busy enough as it is, so I appreciate the few minutes here to speak.
No, thank you very much. I would open it up for a council comment or question if anybody has anything. Councilor Camillo?
Thanks, Ed. I have one question. I noticed you just brought on a new client, Putnam.
Yep.
Now, does this keep track of fleets also? Transportation, your maintenance and?
Yeah, I will say, depending on whether they purchase that or not, I don't know. And I should have specified, I only handle the existing clients. So once a client is fully live on our system, usually 2 years, excuse me, from when they sign with us, I take them over. I have not taken over Putnam.
Okay, but you can manage your transportation department and fleet through this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Page? For some reason, we still aren't hearing you, Mitch. Nope. You've lit up your screen, your squares showing that you're speaking, but we're not hearing you. Is anybody else hearing him? It's not just me, right? Okay. Mitch, try if you hit the caret next to the mute button and hit test speaker and microphone, sometimes that resets the audio. I'll go on to someone else, but we don't have a chat function, do we? I was gonna say you could type a question in the chat, but.
No, we don't implement that.
Okay.
Check 1, 2, check.
Oh, there you go. Better. Gotcha. Now we lost you again. What happened?
No. Check 1, 2.
Go ahead. Try that.
Check. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I just didn't know, Mr. Flaherty, thank you very much for your detailed presentation. It's a lot to absorb at once, and I only remember a little bit right now. I'm gonna have to look at my notes. When you presented this to the Board of Education, did they have any specific questions or response that we can reference?
So the only interaction that I had with the Board of Ed was they did ask for a brief demo of the payroll HR side of our Munis solution. They did ask some questions and kind of got into the weeds a little bit there. Outside of that, I met with the Board of Ed, or I should say I was part of a Board of Ed meeting where I gave just a couple minutes to explain what we did and what we offer. Besides that, I didn't take like a Q&A or anything like that.
And Mitch, just so you know, you were not invited by the Board of Ed, Mr. Flaherty, right? Janet, I think, had invited you to join onto the Board of Ed meeting, and then I had kind of asked them to allow you to speak, and I don't think that they allowed you to speak unless I think one Board of Ed member had asked you a specific question, and that was when you were allowed to speak.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you for that. I was
you're
asked a
correct.
question.
We,
But he was not allowed to do a presentation to the
No.
board. They did not ask for that.
now,
Right.
I actually had let the chairperson know that Eddie and I would be there to answer questions, but we were not encouraged to say anything during the meeting.
So this need is not coming from them then?
No.
Okay.
This is something that was raised in shared services. I had spoken to our Board of Education members. They had, at least several of them had reached out to me expressing an interest in starting this process again. So I wanted to make sure we had all of the information to determine as a council if it made sense to bump it back to shared services at this point. Because I felt like last time around, we only got one side of the story, so to speak. So we wanted to make sure and hear as much as we could directly from Munis instead of just third-party folks. So, you know, we were relying last time in this process on Ms. Murphy and Mr. Giacomowitz primarily. So hearing directly from the vendor as well, I thought made sense for us as a council to decide after hearing the presentation, if it made sense to consider that sending this back to shared services for further consideration.
The only last comment I would say make is that I feel handicapped only because nobody from the Board of Ed and the superintendent aren't here. And we're speculating a lot tonight. And I think they're pretty important in this decision. So thank you.
Right, and they have membership at the shared services table, certainly. And we did invite them, as I mentioned before we started, not realizing that they had a special meeting this evening. This is not their normal meeting night. So that certainly was not the intent. But found out after the fact, after it
Maybe we
was
can do this again. Let's do it again when we're here.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to the board chair and see if we can perhaps set up a joint meeting, either of the Board of Ed and the council together, or depending on what they'd prefer, if it just goes back to shared service for consideration first and then bring it back to full bodies. We can kind of collaborate on that together, and we can certainly talk about that. If you reach out to your side, we reach out to our side, and then talk at agenda setting as well.
All right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yeah, I think these questions are pretty easy. The first is you kept referring to ERP. Can you just, what does ERP stand for?
Sure. Enterprise Resource Planning.
Oh, okay.
So we
And
count that as really on our side, like our full financials, payroll, HR, entire suite. For the municipal side, could be utility billing as well.
Okay. So, and then secondly, have you had experience with converting to Munis from other systems such as Alio or Frontline? How easy, first of all, have you had experience converting data from them to Munis, uploading it, whatever? How difficult a process is it? Or
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I haven't specifically from Alio, but back when I was implementing, I was part of a project that we did. We used to do them all the time. I would do 4 to 5 full projects with different clients a year. Brookfield, excuse me, schools in Connecticut. I actually personally did their payroll HR side we brought them off of one system, and I do not recall what it is, into Munis. From project kickoff to end for them was, I believe, 13 months. That time can greatly vary from, we've had clients do it quicker. I would say the majority are at least a year, and sometimes can be longer depending on the exact modules implemented, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mankey?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. From your experience, do most towns in Connecticut have one system for the town and the same system for the Board of Ed?
For the massive majority of our clients, that we have both the town and the Board of Ed, they're almost all on one Munis database. We have some where they choose to have two separate Munis databases. That tends to be more for political reasons.
So it's possible. So the board and the town, what other clients do you have in the area that have both board and town with Munis?
So in your area,
I see Hartford is one.
Enfield, Hartford, East Hartford, West Hartford,
Weathersfield.
Thank you. In your area,
Farmington.
yes, Farmington. Thank you. And I'll be honest, it's been so long since I've traveled around and since I've represented.
So it's a number of area towns that are around us that are, I would assume Hartford is much more complicated than Newington, just because it's bigger and there's more
without question
people involved. So
yeah, absolutely.
So it works. If it works for Hartford, it should work for us, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the biggest thing that it comes down to when you talk about size of client is the level of services that it takes. What might take 3 months to implement for you all takes 6 months for Hartford, because there's just so much data that you're talking about. But yeah, the most recent one that I'm aware of is, like I said, Brookfield Schools 3 years ago did the exact same thing that we are proposing here.
Okay. And in most of those towns where we have the same system under Munis, both sides maintain their autonomy, right? So the Board of Ed and I see some Facebook stuff that we're trying to take over the Board of Ed, and that's not the case. There's still two separate entities just using the same system.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your permissions are all separated. Your payroll person on the town side isn't seeing the employees on the Board of Ed, and vice versa. Usually there's one or two overall main, admin backend people that have access to all of the data. And even that can vary. But yeah, it's all broken out by a role permission based system.
Okay.
Eddie, do you have Bristol or New Britain? I think we said something about that.
We have
too.
Bristol. Yes, thank you. We have
That
Bristol.
was the other one.
Yep.
It might be helpful if you could just send us a list of those towns that use both Munis for the Board of Ed and for the town side. I think that would be helpful going
Absolutely.
forward.
Yeah.
And it just my last is just a comment. I think the biggest thing that stands out on the slide that's on the screen now is it says it breaks down silos. And I think having the same system would get rid of that, not knowing what either side does. They don't know what our side looks like. We don't know what their side looks like. Duplicating duplicating the efforts seems crazy to me, to have to take information from one system and then manually put it into another system. It just seems to make sense to have the same system. Same autonomy, keep autonomy on either side, but have the same system to account for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mackey. Any other council comment or question? Okay. Eddie, I'm glad you finally had the ability to have a little bit of a voice here and give us some more information. I know last time I had wished I could have heard more from you, so I'm glad you were able to do that and be here this evening. And would you be open to coming back again if we needed you to present this information to some other folks that might need to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully at some point, these are in person again, I'd be happy to come down. So
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you again.
All right. Okay, folks. Mr. Page, I wanted to get back to you. It crossed my mind afterward. We talked about the fact that this would be very valuable to both bodies, and I agree. And there was a scheduling issue. Ironically, the Board of Ed was presenting some information that was requested by the town manager at their meeting tonight at the same time that we had this meeting. So we're going to have to watch their videotape. Maybe they'll watch our videotape too, hopefully. But I know I wasn't able to log on to their meeting to watch some of that information on the per pupil expenditure piece.
Both on NCTV.
There you go.
Right, because it sounds, no, thank you, Mayor. And I was going to ask Ms. Murphy, I don't know if she's still available. Is it okay if I ask a couple more questions? I didn't want to bog Mr. Flaherty down.
I'm still here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ms. Murphy. Did I understand you correctly? Has your staffing in your office changed recently? Are you short-staffed or are you good?
We're down, last October or so, I should say October 2020, the person that we have as our part-time person, she left, she took a full-time position. So we kind of held off on filling that position due to COVID. And we were trying to get a position, a part-time position that I would share with the town manager's office. Well, then we did the internship for the students last summer, so that held it off again. We were kind of waiting. And we have not filled that position. So that position is still vacant at this time.
Sounds like you're swung.
I never realized how much that poor lady was putting into 19 hours a week until, you have to distribute it to everybody. And then you're like, wait a sec, that she did that too. And you just don't realize it. We do have a plan in place that we're going to present during the budget to fill that position along with the town manager's office.
And just one other question. Have you and the town manager met with the superintendent and the director of finance with the Board of Ed?
About this?
Yeah.
No.
Because that might be helpful.
We did tell them we'd be discussing it, and the response that we received is that the Board of Education has already said no to this, so they really didn't want to entertain it.
So you've invited them, okay.
Yeah, we did. He made it the town manager sent them some, letting them know that this would be discussed at tonight's meeting. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Murphy.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Councilor Menke?
Just to piggyback on what Councilor Page said, certainly the finance staff is overburdened and overworked, especially if we have to manually enter stuff that the Board of Ed enters in their system and then have to manually enter into our system or to the town system. Again, if we had the same system, they wouldn't be overworked, they wouldn't be overburdened, and it would be much more streamlined, much more transparent, and it would be better for everybody. I just can't imagine having a house with two checkbooks and try to balance those checkbooks all the time. It seems crazy to me. So some of the overwork that her staff has to do would go away with this new system.
And if you don't mind, Mayor Devlin, I just want to add one other thing. In no way is as Eddie mentioned, they would have their system with their accounts and we would have ours. And we would allow them permission to run reports and see everything that belongs to them on our side, just like we can do with any department within the town. In no way am I saying we're taking over, or I have enough to do. I really am not looking for that. All we're looking for is to gain some efficiencies straight across the board so we can clear up some of the reconciling items and dual work. That's all I'm looking for.
Janet, I couldn't help but think when you were talking about the cost of implementation and how it would pay for itself over 9 years, to me, it would pay for itself sooner than that in terms of cost savings and the number of hours of work that go into double inputting. So when you think of that, if you don't have to double input, take those amount of hours and allocate for something else, that's a real cost savings too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I don't think we were really considering before is the Board of Ed has to do it too. Mm-hmm. So in some, they would gain, yes, they'd have to learn a new system. You're right. And no, that's not easy. But in some ways, there'd be some of the things they were doing before they wouldn't have to do in the future.
Right. Councilor Page?
Just the last comment. I think as I think about this and I hear the presentation, the conversation, and knowing a little about some of the history, it seems like in order to do something like this, we would need to work on building a better trusting relationship between the town side and the Board of Ed side. And from the little knowledge I have so far, being in this seat for only 3 months, there isn't much trust right now. So I think that would need to be addressed. And that's a process. That doesn't happen overnight.
Deputy Mayor Bedrejko?
Yeah, I just, from experience from working in, with other companies and other positions, it does seem to me that double input, double entry, multiple people handling the same data certainly increases the risk for error and issues in reconciling. So, I mean, that alone, one point of entry into a system, right there, you're probably cutting out an awful lot of error management and, reviewing reports and whatever. And then secondly, the fact, the more I think about this, I mean, we're talking as if it's very important for the town side to have autonomy and for the Board of Ed to have autonomy, as Councilor Page, alluded to, the trust issue. But the fact is, no matter whether it's the money on the Board of Ed side in their pot or the money in the town side in our pot, it's one pot of money that belongs to the taxpayers of Newington. And whatever system allows us to manage it in the most efficient and appropriate way to get answers, immediately, to get transparent, to get the proper reporting. It's the taxpayers' money. And it seems to me having it housed in a system where, the data is understandable and readable and accessible by those who need it at the time they need it, is critical. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Donahue, did you have your hand up or you're good?
I had my hand up, but I changed my mind.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands up. I think we're all set with this. I know, James, if you could share as much information with the Board of Education Chair and the Superintendent, so that they can decide if they want to share it with the rest of the board. That would be great. And then we can consider calling a shared services committee for their consideration as well. Thank you. All right, so we have finished the items that we put to the front of the agenda. So the next item we have would be the executive session for personnel, town manager evaluation. I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Counselor Banky?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 1-2006A, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members, the mayor, and Keith Chapman, town manager, if necessary, to discuss a personnel issue. Town manager.
Just James.
Seconded by Counselor Rada.
Yes.
And any discussion on this? Mr. Chapman is available by phone if we need him. He's okay with us moving forward with the executive session.
You all just received an email from me. That meeting is open. As soon as everybody's in, I will turn it over to the mayor and you guys will be on your own.
All right, so we're logging out of this meeting and logging into the link we got in our emails. I'll see you all there. Thank you.
Make sure you all still have the link to come back to this meeting when you're done.
Okay,
We
thank
vote
you.
on the motion. Excuse me, did we vote on the motion before we go?
I'm sorry, you're right, we did not. Let's see, do we still have enough folks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's enough, that's a quorum.
Yep.
I'm here.
All right, so all those in favor of moving into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We will move into executive session. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Nagel.
Wait, it'll come on.
Check 1, 2, check 1, 2.
We hear you.
We hear you.
I'm sorry for all of you then.
It's like we're just waiting on Deputy Mayor Bedrejko. And everyone's back.
Y'all in?
Everybody's here.
Okay. All right, folks, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the town council back to order at 9:33. We have concluded our executive session and we'll move back into our agenda. The next item on our agenda is the mid-year budget transfers. I know Ms. Murphy's on with us. Are you going to take this one, Janet? Uh-oh.
I'm still
There
here.
she
Sorry.
is.
I know we went through it. Sorry, I had to get it off mute. We had discussed this. I don't know if there's any more questions about it. As we had discussed before, this is us just cleaning up some accounts that right now we're unanticipating running short on due to several different reasons. It's also the transfer for the bond premium and the transfer to move the CIP funds to its new technology fund.
This is what we like to call balancing the checkbook. I think someone said last time, right?
Yes, Councilor Page did call it that, correct.
All right. Councilor Mankey?
Just a quick comment. This is a standard procedure, right? We do this every year, as I recall, we do it once in January and then sometime just before the end of June, I believe we do it.
Correct.
Sort of,
Correct. Yep.
sort
And
of
I
keep
also,
the checkbook at the same.
yep, and this is a good time to do it, as I mentioned before, because I'm showing you our estimated revenues and expenditures for this year, right before we start talking budgets.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, who would like to go ahead and read this in for us? Councilor Rada?
Okay, certification. In accordance with section 808 of the town charter, I hereby certify that there exists free from encumbrances in the following appropriations for general fund, the amounts listed below. Account number 960, title contingency in the amount of $199,810. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby transfers the above certified funds to the following accounts in the general fund. Account number 110 for Town Council, $2,170. Account number 150, Finance, $14,900. Account number 170, Town Clerk, $4,660. Account number 180, Personnel, $14,960. Account number 190, General Services, $7,000. Account number 210, Police Department, $128,000. Account number 280, Hydrants, $420. Account 310, Engineering, $2,500. Account number 420, Town Planner, $5,200. Account 450, Building, $5,000. Account 610, Human Services, $7,500. And account 810, Parks and Rec, $7,500.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Nagel. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, I would ask that you unmute your mics. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Councilor Rada, do you want to continue? We have two more.
Sure. Certification. In accordance with section 808 of the town charter, I hereby certify that there exists free from encumbrances in the following appropriations in the capital improvement fund, the amounts listed below. Account number 30197-88411, computer replacement in the amount of $1,636,324.89. Account 30195-88121, Town Hall Irrigation System, $10,425. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby transfers the above certified funds in the Capital Improvement Fund to the following accounts in the Technology Fund and Capital Improvement Fund. Account 3006, transfer from Capital Improvement, $1,636,324.89. And account 30195-88111, General Property Improvement, $10,425.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. One more, Counselor Rada. Are you in for it?
I'm ready and I have my iced tea ready when I'm done.
All right.
Certification. In accordance with Section 808 of the Town Charter, I hereby certify that there exists free from encumbrances in the following appropriations in the CIP Building Fund, the amounts listed below. In account number 31110-8550, transfer to the General Fund, $448,500. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby transfers the above certified funds in the CIP Building Fund to the following account. Account number 11014-8220, interest expense, $448,500.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. The next item this evening is the tax assessment fixing agreements at 3333 Berlin Turnpike. We did discuss this at our last meeting. I see that Mr. Kosofsky is with us this evening as well. Welcome.
Good evening.
Do you want to just give another brief summary on what we're doing tonight, just for the public's sake?
There is a proposed development that is going to be built at 3333 Berlin Turnpike. It is a two-phase development. The first, well, it's a two-phase development that will be done simultaneously. The first phase will be approximately a 79,000 square foot retail facility, multi-tenant, to be anchored by a supermarket. Phase 2 would be 269 market rent apartments. It is being done by two separate legal entities that are working on this project jointly. They did a similar project up in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, very successfully. They have requested a tax fixing agreement on both phases. We have been in discussions with them for several months, and what you have in front of you is the result of our negotiations. For the retail facility, they are proposing to spend approximately $22 million. And for the residential piece in the back, they're scheduled to be spending approximately $60 million for a total of $82 million for the combined complex. The agreements that you have in front of you call for a tax fixing agreement of 50% of the taxes over a 10-year period.
Okay. Thank you for that overview. I know, Council, we did discuss this at our last meeting. If there's any questions, we can go ahead and ask those now. Councilor Camillo?
What does that come out to, Steve, on a yearly take for the town?
Thought that was also included in your packet, but if you give me 1 minute, I will call that up.
It was in our last packet. I know it was around about $1 million after the abatement.
1.1, I think, isn't it?
I think that's true.
The combined net tax after the abatement would be approximately $1.1 million. That is correct.
Thank you, Steve, for all the hard work on this.
So tonight in our packet, we have two separate motions because of the two separate entities. And the contracts that will be signed following are also attached for that we were able to review prior. So I'm looking for someone to read in that first motion. Counselor Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
I'll do one of them. Tax assessment fixing agreement for Grossman Development Group LLC at 3333 Berlin Turnpike. Whereas Section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes, as amended, provides inter alia that any municipality may enter into a written agreement with any party owning an interest in real property in such municipality, fixing the assessment of the real property and all improvements thereon or therein, and to be constructed thereon or therein for a period of not more than 10 years, provided the cost of such improvements to be constructed is not less than $10 million and are constructed for certain uses, which include office, manufacturing, permanent or transient residential, retail, warehouse, storage, or distribution, structured multi-level parking in connection with a mass transit system and information technology, recreational facilities, or transportation facilities. And whereas Rocky River Realty Company owns an interest in the property set forth above in Newington, Connecticut property, said property is more particularly bounded and described as set forth in Schedule A to be attached hereto and made a part hereof. And whereas Grossman Development Group LLC has indicated its intent, if it receives the tax benefits herein provided for, to construct improvements to the property which will permit it to locate a multi-tenant retail center. And whereas such improvements consist of no less than 79,000 square feet of new construction, and whereas said facility will contain approximately $22 million of fully taxable real property upon completion, and whereas the facility as proposed will meet the conditions and requirements for entering tax assessment agreements contained in Section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended, and whereas as an inducement to Grossman Development Group LLC to construct the improvements, the town deems it desirable to enter into an agreement fixing the assessment with respect to the improvements. And whereas the town, Rocky River Realty Company, and Grossman Development Group LLC each have full right and lawful authority to enter into this agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that a tax assessment fixing agreement with Rocky River Realty Company and/or Grossman Development Group LLC is hereby approved in accordance with Section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended, and Keith Chapman, Town Manager, is authorized to execute an agreement on behalf of the town once all required approvals have been granted.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Camillo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Counselor Nagel, I saw your hand. Oh, Counselor Page, go right ahead.
Oh, no, if someone else wants to, I was
No,
just
go
going to
ahead.
take.
Your hand was up first. Go right for it.
All righty. This is a tax assessment fixing agreement for Criterion Development Partners LLC at 3333 Berlin Turnpike. Whereas Section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended provides inter alia that any municipality may enter into an agreement with any party owning an interest in real property in such municipality, fixing the assessment of the real property and all improvements thereon or therein, and to be constructed thereon or therein for a period of not more than 10 years, provided the cost of such improvements to be constructed is not less than $10 million and are constructed for certain uses which include office, manufacturing, permanent, transient, residential, retail, warehouse, storage, or distribution, structured multi-level parking in connection with a mass transit system and information technology, recreational facilities, or transportation facilities. And whereas Rocky River Realty Company owns an interest in the property set forth above in Newington, Connecticut property. Said property is more particularly bounded and described as set forth in Schedule A to be attached hereto and made a part hereof. And
whereas Criterion Development Partners LLC has indicated its intent, if it receives the tax benefits herein provided for, to construct improvements to the property which will permit it to locate a multi-unit residential development consisting of 269 units. And whereas such improvements consist of no less than 314,000 square feet of new construction, and whereas said facility will contain approximately $60 million of fully taxable real property upon completion, and whereas the facility as proposed will meet the conditions and requirements for entering tax assessment agreements contained in section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended, and whereas as an inducement to Criterion Development Partners LLC to construct the improvements, the town deems it desirable to enter into an agreement fixing the assessment with respect to the improvements, and whereas the town, Rocky River Realty Company, and Criterion Development Partners LLC each have full right and lawful authority to enter into this agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that a tax assessment fixing agreement with Rocky River Realty Company and or Criterion Development Partners LLC is hereby approved in accordance with sections 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes and as amended, and Keith Chapman, town manager, is authorized to execute an agreement on behalf of the town once all required approvals have been granted.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Camillo. Any further discussion on this one? I'll just say as a combination, this is really quite an agreement that we've reached. The fact that we're bringing in Mr. Chapman and his team, Mr. Kosofsky, and I know some other staff members as well have worked effortlessly on this, or not effortlessly, really hard on this, but make it look effortless for sure, and have brought in this project. $100 million project is just unheard of in our town. Nothing like that I've known of over the many years that I've been involved. It really is amazing that these companies are looking to settle in our community and bring this project forward. And that is because of the work that Mr. Chapman and Mr. Kosofsky and the other staff members played in this. And I greatly appreciate your efforts, Steve. I know you're on the call tonight, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate you working on this and bringing this forward to us. You know, the public looks at this as an abatement, but we know very well that that property did not bring in nearly $1 million a year undeveloped. So this really is a win-win for us and the developer. And moving forward after that 10 years, that's $2 million. And that's, you know, fixed at this current mill rate. So as the mill rate changes, that could change as well. So I think that's worth noting. And this really is a wonderful thing that you're doing for the town, and that we're able to have this agreement on the table and encourage this kind of development for our community it's huge. So thank you for that. Any other council comment?
I would echo, Mayor, your comments and just say thank you to Mr. Kosofsky and to Mr. Chapman and everyone involved in this. This indeed is wonderful for our town. Thank you.
Yeah, this hasn't been a common practice, but it feels like in the surrounding towns, it's becoming more and more common to see these types of abatements to encourage development. So I'm glad we're considering it here and making this work for our community as well. All right, I don't see any other hands up, so we'll go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, let me just flip my packet here. The next item on our agenda this evening is town manager evaluation. In our packets, we have a draft resolution that we can use and consider. We did have an executive session this evening, as well as 2 weeks ago, to discuss this possibility of an individual bonus for the town manager. And for lots of reasons, which I won't discuss, I'll let everybody else chime in if they'd like to first. We are considering the compensation in the form of a bonus. So I would look for someone to go ahead and read this motion in. Councilor Menke.
Resolved that reflective of the town manager's performance during the COVID-19 pandemic, the town council hereby authorizes an individual bonus of $30,000 in addition to the current salary of Keith Chapman, town manager.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Camillo. And discussion on this item. Councilor Page.
Yes, well, I'm going to vote no on this tonight, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you two reasons. One is I did not evaluate Mr. Chapman last fall. I think it was October. So I don't think I have a say in any bonus for him. And two is when his evaluation was done, I think this action should have been taken before the election and not after. So I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council comment? All right, I don't see any other hands up. Okay, I will go ahead. I think based on the fact that we know that it's not a unanimous vote, we'll do a roll call vote on this one.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Budrago,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Counselor Page,
No.
Counselor Rada,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
8-1.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-1. Thank you, counselors. Moving on to the next item. I'm just checking the time too, because I know we have constraints. We're at 9:53. So just remind me, guys, if we get to that 10:30 mark, we need to consider it. The next item is initiate charter revision process. I don't believe there's action to be taken this evening, but James, do you want to go ahead and just explain the next steps?
That is correct. No action is proposed tonight. This is just a reminder for the public and for the council that we are coming up on our deadline in order to properly place membership for the commission. Otherwise, it will disband itself on the 24th. So with any luck, we will have all of our members placed on the 22nd, as well as a charge that we can place to the commission to begin their work. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other council comment on this item or question? We'll have this on our agenda next week for action. All right. Next, we are entering into new business. We had already tackled the Central Connecticut Health District annual update and Munis at the beginning of our meeting this evening. So we are on to the Anna Reynolds School PCR submission authorization to bid. I'm just getting there in my packet. There's lots of pages in between. So the Anna Reynolds School PBC is currently, a Public Building Committee, I apologize, is currently in the review process with the state of Connecticut to finalize the construction documents to prepare to go out to bid for the project. I believe Mr. Woods is on with us this evening. Are you still here, Steve?
I am, Mayor, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I know you guys had a lot of stuff going on. It's a late meeting, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. Before I start, I just want to let you know that with me tonight are three of the team members. I've got Marnie Liska from Connecticut Service Group, Jennifer Mangelli from Castle Booze Associates, who is the project architect. Marnie Liska is the owner's project manager, who represents us for that company. And then we have Tom DeMoro, also on the call from Newfield Construction, who is the construction manager.
Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. As you know, it's been a long process, and we're getting down to crunch time. This is the first of two meetings. We're going to present a little bit of information to you tonight about the project, but it's key that we get your approval so we can go out to bid at the end of the month so that we can have the first round of construction start after school gets out this year in June of 2022. Good news is that we are on schedule and we are on budget. So we, as it stands right now, we expect the project to come in at budget. And if it doesn't, we do have some contingencies in place as deduct alternates in the bidding process, that in case something does run over, we have some avenues to go down and explore as a building committee, and then and make recommendations back to the council. But again, it's key that we get your permission, not this meeting, but next meeting, so that we can go out to bid. Without your approval to go out to bid, obviously the project doesn't move forward. With that, if you'd like, Marnie Liska is here again from Construction Services Group. She does have the budget. We could put that up, or we can kind of stop here and just take questions, however you would like to move forward, Mayor.
Counselors, what would you prefer? I'd like to take the pulse of everyone. Would you like to see the budget put up for a quick second for us to take a peek?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Okay. All right, Marty. Why
thank
don't you
you.
just walk them right through it, Marty.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. And can everyone see the project budget on their screen with the blue colored column?
Not yet.
Oh, we're still seeing the
Yeah.
memo on the screen.
Yeah.
You're still seeing the memo. Okay, let me give this another shot. There we go. This should do it.
Yeah.
There it
There you
goes.
go.
Perfect.
Okay, excellent. So please let me know if you need me to blow this up a little more.
Please, yeah, please.
Yep. Tell me when. It's good.
That's good.
Is that good? Okay. So this is the current project budget for Anna Reynolds. The blue column is where we stand today. And that reflects our latest cost estimate from our construction manager, Newfield Construction. So Newfield has done 3 separate estimates for the project as design has progressed over the last, I don't know, 9 months, I would say, 6 to 9 months. They've done a schematic design estimate, a design development estimate, and then this is the last estimate, the CD estimate or construction document estimate. So this budget is kind of arranged where we've got all the design fees under the A and B designations here, soft costs under the C designations, FFE technology and playground equipment under the D. And then here, E is the total cost of construction. So we're tracking about $30 million for the hard construction costs. And with the balance of the $35 million project being soft costs and owner contingency. So as of today, our owner contingency of $1.4 million gives us a 4% project contingency, which is a good amount. The state keeps us from exceeding 5%. So 4% is certainly a good amount to have. As Steve mentioned, we do have some deduct alternates in the bid documents, primarily surrounding the extent of design in the courtyard. That we'll be asking bidders to give us pricing on in case when the bids come in, we need to find some savings. So that's basically where we're at. And just to back up here, you can see column A was the original grant estimate. So that was the original estimate that was put together by Colliers and JCJ that went to the state. So as we develop the drawings and we identify individual requirements for the project, we adjust the budget accordingly in this column B, which brings us to column C where we are today. So you can see some items like the special inspections coordinator, item B5, item B6. They weren't broken out in the grant estimate, but we've since learned that these services are needed. And these particular costs represent actually third-party plan review was a hard cost. It was a bid that was received and a purchase order was cut. Same with the commissioning agent, the 48,350 is actual purchase amount. And then some of these are placeholders for future consultants and costs. So does anyone have any particular questions on the budget or need any more explanation? Please just let me know or raise your hand.
The only thing before we take any questions, Mayor, is that I just want to be clear. we are on budget. While we have set up some safeguards in case something happens when the bids come in, because we don't know until the bids come in where the prices lie, right? So but we do have a balanced budget right now, but we do definitely have safeguards in place, and it's mainly in the courtyard of the building where we feel we can potentially see some savings if in fact we need them. But as it stands now, as the plans are drawn and the specifications are written, we are on budget, which is, again, I think a big accomplishment from all the members of the committee. And actually, you have two of your counselors, obviously Counselor Rada and Counselor Camillo, who have participated in this process. Mike Camillo for quite a while now, and Counselor Rada just coming on board. But again, they've been very helpful in getting us here. And again, we look forward to seeing a successful project in a little over 27 months.
Yeah, this is really great news for sure, especially with COVID and prices and how crazy things are right now. So, Counselor Donahue?
Is it probably is. I probably just don't know where to look for it. Is this available for the public? I mean, can I get a copy of it?
Yes. Yes. We can get that to you. We'll have it emailed to all the council members.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Counselor Mankey?
Just to be clear, all the action you ask from us at this point, or for our next meeting for the vote, is to allow you to go out to bid. And then once the bids come in, you'll be able to see where the bids come in compared to the budget.
That is correct. There'll be another round, Councilor Mankey, that we will let you know where we are then as compared to our budget prior to going out. And then there will be a guaranteed maximum price that will be put in front of you by the construction manager that you need to agree to before contracts can be signed. I believe that's how it works. Tom DeMoro is also on the call, who could speak probably a little bit better than I can to it. He lives and breathes it every day.
All set, Counselor Mankey?
And just how confident are you that the bids will come in where you budgeted them?
You know, again, I can let Tom speak to it, but they're taking him from bids that are coming in on a regular basis that they see. A Newfield Construction is probably one of the larger school contractors now in the CM field. Okay. So we're pretty confident in the numbers that we have. I've gone through it and looked at the numbers, as you know that I'm in this business. I think they've done a really good job, and you don't really know until the bids come in, but I think that we're good. I really do.
So these are really based on current rates, what you're seeing for other projects.
That is correct.
And just finally, I'd just like to thank the committee for all their hard work. I know this is building committees are never fun, but I appreciate all you guys, all the work you've done.
Thank you, Councilor Mankey.
Counselor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Woods, thank you so much to you and everyone who's done such work on this. It's pleasing to see the numbers come down so dramatically in the design section of the budget up top. It looks like you have all sharpened your pencils. Those are some significant differences. Is that normal to have such a wonderful reduction from the original?
You know, all budgets ebb and flow. And through the planning stages. So there's some things that we did know about, some things we did know about. And then there's a design contingency built in. So as the design contingency goes away, some numbers grow, some numbers shrink. Because we actually know at some point we'll have fixed costs for all of these. Some we already know, some things have been already put out to bid. So again, we're early in the project, but I think we're hitting the street for our bids at perfect timing. We're going to be out early spring, which usually means you get aggressive bids. So
thank you very much.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Boudreau?
This might be a little out of the scope of this discussion, but since we have all the experts here in terms of the different fields, do you anticipate at this point any delays simply based on the supply chain issues?
You know, I'll let Tom DeMoro take that question from the construction manager. Tom?
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, this is Tom from Newfield. That's a very good question. We are seeing some delays. We did an analysis on various materials to see if there was anything that we needed to purchase ahead of time. And it's kind of like you really never know these days what's going to get hung up. The weirdest things like roof insulation. We've taken some measures to like schedule around that, so we're not going to start the roofs right away because that material is about 9 to 12 months out from the time that material gets approved. So we are adjusting the schedule. It's a difficult question to answer at this point, but we are seeing some issues on some jobs where you have to kind of get creative, and sometimes you have to change manufacturers to simply get the product. So it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Any other council comment or question? All right, we'll move this to our next agenda for action. Thank you all for your presentation this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thanks.
I hope you don't go on too much longer.
We do too.
Good night.
Good night. All right, folks, next item is the recommended changes to the town council rules of procedure. We were provided in our packet with a draft with the changes highlighted in a variety of colors. And I know Councilor Menke, you're the chair of that committee, correct?
I am.
If you would like to take the lead on this one.
Yeah, I'd like to first start with Councilor Page and Councilor Donahue. We met 2 weeks ago, I think, at this point, or 3 weeks ago, and came up with these changes. It was a very fast meeting, a productive meeting. We made some changes, which I'll just go through here. If you just look at the first page, the only really change here is we added on section 4, we added also and or virtual, just to, last time we did these rules, we never thought we would actually be going to our virtual meetings or Zoom meetings. So we included that just in, hopefully we don't have to go to virtual meetings all year long, but we have that in there if we need to. The other changes, I guess the big change in the bottom also is where it says at the bottom, it says posted to the town clerk's office on the website, town clerk's office. And that's just a semantic change. We put that in there because it makes more sense and makes it clear. And if you go to section 9 is where the big changes come here. We just changed the sort of the order of our meetings. To keep in mind that we sometimes run late and then we can't take action on those items we have to vote for. We've moved, we put a spot in for presentations like we had tonight could be considered a presentation. So instead of having to move the agenda around to move things up, and they'd be covered under presentations. Resignations and appointments, tax refunds, and minutes of previous meetings are in the middle of the meeting between old and new business, and that lets us vote on those because normally new business items aren't voted on anyway. So we've moved those up in the process, and also we put in under remarks by councilors any informational items. So if there was something that was coming on in town that we just wanted to give a minute to give a commercial for the extravaganza or the tree lighting or any of those things, we could make those announcements here. And then if you go up to public participation, we just change it where the public participation would be right after old business, right before old business. So we would have it spelled out.
No, that was because it was previously notated in an incorrect location on our proposed agenda listing.
So it just changes that error.
Thanks.
It says that though a telephone line or a virtual meeting link will be included. Before it just had telephone line. We've changed the time of public participation for the first time from 4 minutes to 3 minutes. And that was based on hardly anybody goes over the 3 minutes limit. And so it's more in keeping with what the practice has been for people calling in to either in person or on Zoom or on the phone. We also highlighted with the letters and or emails could be sent to. So it's towncouncil@newingtonct.gov. And then in the bottom paragraph there, it says all letters and or emails. In the past, we've considered letters as emails, but it didn't necessarily spell out emails. Now it says letters and emails. And it says that through the course of that paragraph. Under voting, we always have this issue when we want to do a waiver, what the procedure is and so now we kind of spelled it out in bullets. So it's clear. We read the motion to waive and then we take action. We read the main motion and then we allow public participation on the main motion, then we vote on the main motion. So it makes it clearer, I think, so people don't get confused or not knowing what the process is. And then it says when voting in a virtual format, all members, cameras and microphones shall be active while voting. We had that some discussion at the last council about virtual meetings because we didn't think we'd be in virtual meetings, so we had some discussion about requirements for virtual meetings. So we've included them here. Time limitations, we just added except public participation, executive sessions and adjournment, because executive sessions can go after the time limit. And then in executive sessions, we said a counselor should attend an executive session virtually. They shall ensure they are located in a private location for the entire session. And again, that's something we've talked about in the previous council talked about, just to make sure that what's discussed in executive session stays in executive session. And then we added under counselor expectations, when a member attends virtually, their camera shall be active at all times and their microphone shall be should be active when recognized by the chair to speak. So these are the rules we're proposing to make the changes, and I think it'll make the meetings go faster or smoother. They're basically the same procedures we had in the past, just with some tweaks to them and listing out some things. I think the major change is the changing of the order of our meetings to get that voting. I'm looking now, it's at 10:15, so we're getting close to that witching hour. So unless the other members of the committee have any comments.
I would just say you said it well, Tim, and I want to thank James. You helped us out a lot to think this through. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I should point out James was his idea to move the voting things in the middle of the meeting. Both Councilor Donahue and Paige and I agreed that if it doesn't work, we're going to blame him. If it works, it was our idea.
Exactly.
Happy to take the blame.
All right, counselors, any
We're here
thoughts,
for you, buddy.
questions, anything? If not, we'll move this to our next meeting. Okay, Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yeah, I just have actually, when I was just reading this about, and maybe because it was so fluid in the past, I just can't remember this, about the letters and the emails. When we got a lot of letters in the past, did we ever actually read everybody's name and address, or didn't we just say, we received 25 letters pro and 12 against? I don't recall us ever. So is this it's a good requirement that we do this, but I don't ever recall us reading names and addresses of people who wrote in letters.
Which section are you at?
Yeah, the public participation piece with people sending emails.
Section 10.
James, you usually handle that for us when we provide you with the emails that we get.
Correct. We have done that previously. I believe we did it for the Anna Reynolds public hearing. We received quite a lot of emails. I want to say 45 to 50.
Yeah.
We actually did outline the name, the address, and if they were in favor or against on that one, just because of the importance of the bonding itself. And previously, the council, I want to say, in my early part of starting in middle of 17, we're actually reading smaller amounts of emails or letters that were received before the meetings. So it has been a previous practice, not as often since we've changed the rules in 2020.
Okay, so the rule now is going to be that we're not reading them into the record?
Correct.
I know,
We'll-
but
we'll
they'll
indicate
they'll be
them.
attached, but so even if there's one letter that comes in, we are not going to read it. We will just say that we received a letter from Joe Smith on Edmund Street, and it'll be attached to the record.
That's correct.
Okay, and also,
I just should put out, it's a misnomer that we don't read them, because I think we all read them. We just don't read them into the
no,
record.
because in the public, yeah,
Right.
not public. And then secondly, I know and it's hard when there's a lot of letters, like for Anna Reynolds, it's hard to do this. But should it be put in here that in terms of public participation, a letter will you have two chances at public participation, either two in person, or two, Zoom or in person, or a letter and an in-person, or how we're trying to keep saying that a letter counts as a public participation, so that somebody doesn't have a letter plus two participations.
So on
Should that be
the
in there?
top of section 10, we indicate they can only be heard once during the public participation sections.
Yeah, but I don't think, to me, it's not clear that a letter counts as public participation. I wish it would be made just a little clearer. Just a suggestion.
If I could interrupt, we're getting close to that 10:30 time if this conversation goes on, which is fine with me, but we won't be able to vote on other things since that's one of the changes that's being made. I thought I'd interrupt at this time.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. We have about 10
Almost.
minutes left.
Well, we just make a motion to just extend it
Yeah, we can.
so we cover ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
So I would move, we extend the time past 10:30.
Second.
What else do we need to include? Anything else, James, to be able to take action on items, or how do we?
Yeah, it should be, the council hereby moves to allow action on items after the 10:30 curfew.
So moved, Tim?
So moved, whatever he said.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Page. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Counselor Camilla, you're still muted. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the reminder, Counselor Nagel. Counselor Pedreco, go ahead. We didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's just that I think, just for clarity, it should just leave a note that a letter counts as a public participation or something, to just make it clear.
Are you thinking around this after the statement?
Well,
After
I'm
the first line?
Mela, what line? Where are you? I don't even know.
Public participation, first line. The public shall be provided 2 opportunities to participate in each town council meeting.
And then you can say,
Letters or emails supplied to the council shall constitute one public participation section.
Right.
Yeah, it's considered as a public participation.
Yeah.
Right.
that would be a good place for it, I think.
We can do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
It did come to my attention that we missed a letter that was sent in for tonight, so I will read that name and address at the end of the meeting at the second public participation. One that came in about a week ago and I had completely forgotten, so I apologize. I'll read that in later. You all sparked my memory. Any other comment on this? If not, we'll move it to our next agenda for consideration.
Okay.
All right, thank you to the committee members. Some really thoughtful changes there, and you too, James. Thank you.
My pleasure. Makes our lives easier.
All right. So we have concluded our new business. We're on to resignations and appointments. Let's see. The first is a resignation for the Board of Ethics. Who would like to go ahead and read that?
I got it.
Go ahead, Councilor Menke.
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Gavin Donahue as a member of the Board of Ethics in accordance with the letter received January 26, 2022, and effective January 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please unmute your mics, guys.
Aye.
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 Aye. Counselor Camilla, you're still muted.
Aye.
Aye. You're being the problem child tonight. We'll have to keep reminding you. Don't worry. All
Awesome.
right. All right, the next one is a resignation from the Board of Parks and Rec. Counselor Mankey?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Michael Carrion as a member of the Board of Parks and Recreation in accordance with an email correspondence dated February 1st, 2022, and effective immediately.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Braverman. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We have another one from Board of Parks and Recreation.
I'm on a roll. Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Roberta Byron Cole as a member of the Board of Parks and Recreation in accordance with an email correspondence dated February 2nd, 2022, and effective immediately.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Rada. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is our appointments for various boards. Is this you also, Mr. Counselor
It is.
Mankey? All right, go right ahead.
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Employee Insurance and Pension Benefits Committee, David Johnson, Specialist, 17 Cinnamon Road, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2023, reappointment of self. Environmental Quality Commission, 2016. Gene Capps, Public Member, 92 Gooddale Drive, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2025. A vacancy, the resignation of Jay Slater. Board of Ethics, Christine Wagner, 217 Beacon Street, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2025, reappointment of self. This next one, the Park and Recs Board, just under it's where it says Party Max, it says 8, it should be Party Max 7. So if James, you could make that correction in the minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
actually put it on screen too for you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thomas Gill, 66 Highland Street, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2025, replaces term expiration of B. de Blasio. Richard De Silva, 485 Connecticut Avenue, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2023, vacancy, resignation of R. Byron Cole. And Standing Insurance Committee, Dave Johnson, underwriter, address 17 Cinnamon Road, Party R, term 2/8/2022 to 11/30/2023, replacement of self.
A second.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Discussion on these appointments.
Yeah, two things.
All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is tax refunds. Deputy Mayor Pedrejko, if you would.
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $2,077.96 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the request for refunds of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Braverman. Discussion on these? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is minutes of previous meetings. I'll entertain a motion to accept the January 25th, 2022 regular meeting minutes and October 13th, 2020 public hearing minutes as written.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Mankey, seconded by Counselor Rattle.
Mhm.
All right, any discussion on these? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is written and oral communications from the town manager. He's out ill tonight, but James, did he provide anything for you to share?
I do have one item. It was a request of Councillor Page to get an update on solar improvements throughout the town through Verigy. We'll make sure that this gets added into your folder, but this is the work that's taking place at all of the different locations, specifically Town Hall, John Patterson, the high school, E Green, and Ruth Chafee School, as well as the Senior Center, Parks Garage, and Fire Departments 2 and 3, and our projected savings over the life of the agreement. We'll make sure this is all in your folders.
Thank you very much.
Right, welcome.
Thank you. All right. Next item is council liaison and committee reports. Counselor Nagel.
Yes, thank you. I attended the Capital Region of Governments meeting last week. On a few things that are of importance to us is they're drafting a 5-year plan through CROG, and part of it will involve the Hartford rail line and funding if and when it's going to happen and how. Also, there was a presentation by the Department of Regional Services head, was Mark Boughton, who formerly was the mayor of Danbury for many years. And he went through a long litany of grants and funds through connected with transportation and other infrastructural investments. It's a long process and list that involves local as well as state funds federally, supposedly coming through. The short end of it is that at the end of his conversation, he said no funding has been put forth as of the moment. And I've shared this information in more detail with our town manager previously. There also was a discussion concerning waste projects. As you know, Merritt is closing, and the hope that monies can or suggestions can be found to replace that. That is an issue that involves many towns, including Newington in the state. At that time, it was noted that the state was going to continue have virtual meetings, and it was shared with us that at that time, 14 members of the legislature were not going to opt to run again. Of course, that's a fluid issue on all parts, and that's my report at the moment.
Thank you, Counselor Nagel. Counselor Rada?
Yes, just reporting very briefly on economic development, and Councilor Bedrejko and I attended the meeting last week. Just a few items. They're discussing under beautification, the flower pots and the plantings that they did last year, and maybe expanding that into other locations around town. That discussion is going to continue at the next meeting, and I think they will invite someone from the building department, and then they talked about possible collaboration with the chamber on this. There was a mention of something possibly happening at the old Best Market site. I don't know anything further about that, and nothing else. It's kind of a little dangled before us. So I'm wondering if maybe something will come up at the TPZ meeting. If not, I think we'll probably ask about that at the next development meeting. They did note the small business grants that we've already talked about in our meetings, and that's about it. I don't know, Councilor Bedrejko, anything that you wanted to add?
No, you got it.
Okay. The only other thing is, as Steve Woods mentioned, that Councilor Camillo and I are on the Anna Reynolds building committee, and nothing to report that wasn't said this evening in their presentation. They're on budget, we're on track. And hopefully we'll get things out to bid by the end of the month or get that approval.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we are moving on to public participation. I would like to mention that I was remiss earlier in mentioning that we did receive an email. It was actually sent out to all of us from David Horrigan at 30 Candlewick Drive. It will be attached to the minutes of this meeting. James, I don't know if you had received it. It was received on January 31st.
I have not yet. But
Okay,
I will,
so
I'll work with
send
somebody
that
to
out
make
to
sure
you.
we have those. Yeah.
Okay, so for Mr. Horgan's understanding, council rules of procedure, I know he had requested that it be read into the record, but it will, our rules of procedure don't allow for that, but it will be attached to the minutes of this meeting so that it is part of the public record. Okay, I do have 3 members of the public with their hands up. I will start with Ms. Lyons.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. First, I'd like to discuss the proposed changes of the rules of procedure. I did not see the actual presentation, but I looked at the attachments on the agenda. And if you're dropping the public participation in the beginning from 4 minutes to 3 minutes, that's your decision. I think it's a poor one. Not too many people take up 4 minutes, and you eliminated and have eliminated reading letters into the record. The fact of the matter is I would I think it'd be more transparent if you could if you had 50 people write in, say 25 people wrote in regarding the Culver Street development and are opposed to it, and 25 people wrote in are in favor of it. It might give the general public a little information as to the feeling of the public. I get that it's for the counselors to read and see, but it might be nice for the public to be aware of as well. That being said, just to comment that when meetings are held on Zoom, I hope that the members remember that although people aren't on live during the meeting, they do watch later on. So with that being said, Councilor Donahue, I really appreciate you offering me up to read all the letters into the record if they were going to be read, but I decline.
I gave it a shot, Rose.
Nice shot, John, but it's not going to happen. And once we get back to meetings in person, I will make sure that I get to that podium and speak, because 2 years of not being able to come in and say what we have to say, trying to get onto Zoom, hoping that we can, and it's not right. It's not right. But in any case, the Munis discussion, it was bad enough for the past few years, or 10 years or 11 years that I've been watching, that the Board of Ed and the Town Council go back and forth. He said, she said, they said. I remember standing in the Town Hall auditorium and asking for people to get together, for the Board of Ed and the Town Council to get together, come around the table and have some meaningful discussion. Now we've thrown Facebook into the mix, and one side saying they were invited, they weren't invited, they didn't know about the meeting, having 2 meetings this week. The meeting for the Board of Ed, as far as I know, was scheduled on December 15th, and somebody should have known. And this hearing from the Board of Ed that you want to open up this discussion again, I'd like to know who. I'd like to see the emails, the back and forth. I don't want hearsay. I don't believe what's on Facebook. And quite honestly, I'm starting to wonder about these town council meetings and even the Board of Ed. I haven't been watching them, so I'm not saying anybody's lying. There's just a gray area here that I just don't understand what's happening. Last but not least, the $30,000 to the town manager as a bonus for what he's done during COVID. I am not privy to any information as to what he has done. All I know is what he hasn't done, as far as me as a person who wants to come into my town hall or who wants to go to a meeting. It hasn't happened. I think you've opened up a can of worms, and I hope that the town manager feels better, and when he feels better, that maybe he can use that $30,000 wisely in looking for a home here in Newington, Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. Next is Ms. Mazzacoli.
Hi, Sue Mazzacoli, 149 Harris Drive. I listened to the meeting and you once again addressed resignations from different commissions, and you accepted a resignation from the Board of Ethics. So I immediately Googled Board of Ethics, Newington, Connecticut, town, and my name is still on there. So I've brought this up before. This is not a new item. So I'm hoping that maybe when you Google, they send you to old websites. I'm not sure, but if somebody could just, kind of update that list, it would be helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where we blame James.
All right, next is Mr. Trister.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. John Trister, 81 Woodland Street. Just want to first say thanks everyone for your service tonight. I know these nights get long and I appreciate all your volunteer work. I just wanted to point out a few things in relation to the town manager bonus. First and foremost, $30,000 is the equivalent of 37% of the average household income in the town of Newington. The town manager already makes $60,000 more than that average household income. So there's that. $30,000 is about 50% of the average teacher's salary in this town. $30,000 is also the equivalent of 79% of the cost to run an election in this town. And last but not least, the town manager requested a 0% budget increase from the superintendent for the school budget this year. That's all I got to say. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right. I don't see any other public participation, so we will move on to remarks by counselors. Counselor Page.
Mayor, I just have a few comments I'd like to put out there. One is, and you all know on the council, because I've corresponded with you, that I'm still very interested in looking at our train stop or train station on Cedar Street. There's a lot of data out there that's been discussed since 2019. Without being dramatic, I think we have a moral obligation to look at public transportation as part of a solution to climate change. And I appreciate, by the way, the town manager providing through James the green policies that we're promulgating in town. But the train station is an engine potentially for economic development. CROG and other studies have been done over the last couple of years. There's tremendous opportunity here. There are other towns that would kill for an opportunity to have a train stop that will connect us to New York, eventually to Boston when the Worcester to Springfield line is connected. Think of the possibilities for business, for commuters, for pleasure, for all sorts of opportunities. We thrive as a town because of our relationship with other towns and other regions in Connecticut. We have thousands of people coming to our community, spending money, and we're grateful for that. And they help us to stabilize our tax base. I think we have an obligation to work with the region, not just Newington residents, with the region in doing what we can to creatively drive that development in that area. And I give you credit, Mayor, and I give the town manager credit and everybody else who has served, I've said this before, in working on the development that's happening there now. And I think I applaud you. I think though the train stop is a logical, natural addition to that. So I'll stop on that. I have a couple other comments, and I look forward to public discussion about this. I may be in the minority, and if I am, I will say thank you for listening, and I'll move on, and we won't do it again. But I want to hear from more people in town, yay or nay, about this. And I'd like to look at all the facts. The second point I'd like to make, and Rose, you sort of stole my thunder. I also, you know a lot more than I do, Rose, but I also am concerned about the lack of trust between the Board of Education and the town. And I think we should have a subcommittee between now and the final before the ink's dry on the new budget, where we work bipartisan with the Board of Education and with the town, and we collaborate and try to reduce tensions and increase trust. I think
to propose a zero budget months ago by the town manager is just as irresponsible as anybody on any other side of education saying we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars. Both those positions are irresponsible, and I think we need to find a way to compromise and come in the middle somewhere. And looking carefully and thoughtfully at the needs of the Board of Education, their staff, the teachers. COVID is driving teachers out of education right now. Some of you are in education right now, and you know, I've been in education, the tremendous stress. And I think the last thing we should be doing is undercutting the efforts of the Board of Ed to support their staff and hire properly. The third comment I just want to make is to thank Chief Clark and the entire police department for everything you've been doing to keep us safe. And as others have seen, the chief has worked diligently to hire new staff. Looks like some phenomenal people coming on board, and I express my gratitude to the chief and to all of our police and all of our first responders for your service to us. Thank you so much. And I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for listening, and thank you for this time.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Counselor Mankey?
Yeah, just to respond to Councilor Page's, we can discuss those items at next agenda setting, which I think is next week. Certainly those things are hot topics, but for me, before we discuss the train station, I need more information. So I think the fact finding is more important, is more important now than getting the public involved. I think we know what the state will cover, what they won't support, and whether they actually put any money to any train station, no matter where it's built. I think those are issues we need to discuss. We can talk about at agenda setting.
Counselor Camillo?
Counselor Page, you keep mentioning the lack of trust between the Board of Ed and the town council. She plays politics, okay? She gets everybody involved, just like you like to stir the pot. You've got to stop. Leave the D's and R's at the curb. Please, when we're sitting here, let's work together. And it doesn't seem to be working that way, and you've only been here a short time. So please, going forward, think about that before you start talking. Thank you.
Other council comment? I would just say that in terms of the train station, Councilor Page, I think that there is definite support for a train station. I don't think we have enough information from the state where that is at in the process, whether it's even a reality. The last indication we had gotten was that it could be 10 years out before the funding really becomes available for that. So I know you had sent an email suggesting a public hearing, and I had responded before tonight's meeting. I don't know if you saw it or not, but that is really something we could talk about at agenda setting. We can bring it to the council table if need be. I'm not sure that a public hearing makes sense at this point if there's not an actual project to be considered. Typically, public hearing would be when there's a project proposed and we would need public input to know whether we need to support it as a council. And that being said, if funding is not available for another 10 years, then it may be a very different public and a very different dynamic in terms of want from our public at that point in time. So I personally feel a public hearing is premature. But I did in my email request that the town manager follow up with our town planner to see if she had gotten any further information from the state, and we could share that with the council and at our next agenda setting as well. So I did request that information just this afternoon.
I saw that briefly. Thank you, Mayor, because I know the town planner is busy, but I know she did say last month she would try to set up a meeting with the DOT and leadership here, and they have a ton of facts. And so thank you very much for doing that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other council comment or question? Okay. I want to make one comment on the record that I did not make earlier when we did discuss the town manager evaluation piece. It had been a question that had been posed where the funds would come from. It is not coming from COVID funds. There is a position in the budget for an assistant to the town manager that was not filled because of COVID. Mr. Chapman has taken on the responsibilities of his job, that job, as well as economic development. So the line item in the budget where we're looking to take that funds out of is not COVID related money. It is the assistant town manager line item in the budget, just for clarification. Any other council comment or question? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Braverman. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We stand adjourned at 10:47. Thank you, everyone.
Feel better, Mayor.
See
Feel
ya.
better.
Thank you.